Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hi there.
Welcome. Hi, how are you, Jack?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay. I got some sangria here.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm just having the classic water, just the classic
no,
water.
I need to hydrate. I do. This is not an
Uh,
act, guys. This is not an act.
this is real. This is really how you feel.
It is. It's really how I feel.
Wow.
Yep. And I'm just
Hydration
closing
is
this
very
out
important.
because,
We should
yeah,
open the show by saying that hydration is very, very important. You got to keep, your electrolytes going. Is my understanding. You have to keep the electrolytes sort of all going.
flow in the
Working,
flow.
working. In
Yeah.
the flow. I don't know.
You got to keep them twerking.
I'll tell you, when
Right?
I got sick, I really got into those electrolyte waters, like the ones for babies, like Pedialyte and stuff like
Okay,
that.
got it.
And
Yeah.
I'm sort of like now having to like wean myself off onto the regular stuff, just
Huh.
regular water.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Does it cost more money, the other stuff?
I mean, this Pedialyte, yeah, I mean, it's like Gatorade or whatever, but it's basically, for babies.
Right.
You get it when you're sick, and it is, very hydrating and everything like that. But anyway,
What?
if you really want to hydrate, you can get Pedialyte.
Well, what about coconut water?
Oh, that's supposed to be good stuff too. I don't really have it that much,
Well, maybe
but
you should.
maybe I should. Maybe I should have more coconut water. I have a lot of we have a lot of oat milk these
Oat
days. I have a
milk
lot
is
of oat
good. It's
oat
very
milk.
good. Yeah, it's
Try to
very
stay
good.
away from real dairy
Yeah, no, you don't
because
want
it
that.
makes me a little phlegmy. It'll
Maybe you're
make you a little
Jewish. I've always
phlegmy.
thought you were Jewish.
Maybe we'd have to go back through my lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it would have to be. We'd have to do it
Yeah.
that way. I want to do that. We should do that. Like Skip Gates Jr., Henry Louis Gates. He has that
sure.
show, right, where he reveals people's DNA. Remember, he revealed that Larry,
Weird.
David, and Bernie were related. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Did you see that?
bizarre. The 23andMe show or
Yeah.
something
It's a
bizarre.
little weird. It's a little bit. It can get a little
It's
bit.
not my favorite thing. Yeah.
Well, it gets a little respectability politics, especially in their
Mhm.
ads. Especially like black people find out that. I mean, there have been a few ads, at least one, but I feel like more than one, where there's like black people are really excited to learn that someone in their family, like there was a free person in their family, which I'm not. I'm like, well, what if there weren't a free person in their family?
Right. I think the ones that are also very exploitative, I don't know if it's the same company, but the ones where you're like, I found out that I like could have a disease. Like I found out like I,
Right.
Have a, I'm more likely to get a disease. I'm like, that seems a little fucked up that you're telling people that they might find out, that they're, I don't know.
They can screen for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems, I don't know, with all this stuff. Like, plus, it's just a database for the cops. Also,
well, there's
all
that,
these
right?
DNA companies are just, cop databases that we're actually paying to be a part of. You know what I mean?
It's more propaganda.
It's propaganda, more of the scourge propaganda.
Wait a
again.
second. Brad Bloom says, I saw Anderson Cooper learned his ancestors were slave owners who were killed by their slaves, and he said serves them right.
Oh wow. But you don't stop to think for a second, like, how does that end up? Like, he's a Vanderbilt, you know what I mean? Like, he's Gloria Vanderbilt's kid. And so I'm like, the fact that there were slaves in the lineage at all, I'm like, does that not inform why you are where you are today? You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if you're like wokely, even if you're wokely, like, that's good that they got killed that way. I wokely agree with that.
Right. I wokely. He should give his ancestors' killers a posthumous award.
To give them his TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or their I guess
their ancestors, I suppose.
Well, what's the opposite of ancestors?
Descendants.
Yeah.
Descendants. Yeah. Descendants is the word.
Can you imagine it with Anderson Cooper going like that, and his back is to another person, and it's like Descendants.
And they switch it out. Yeah. Descendants.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I told you that he went to my well, let's take a pause in 1 second because I do want to do a mini deep dive, a medium depth dive into Anderson Cooper. Yeah. I'm gonna put not just my toe, I'm gonna put like a whole foot in the pool there.
Okay,
but
sure.
Before we do that, I just want to give people a heads up because today's show is pretty exciting. We got 3 guests, okay? Not 1, Not 2.
Wow.
Not 2.5, but 3. So who are we talking to, you ask? Well, we're talking to Danny Haiphong, who is going to talk to us about the new Cold War. He's very actively organizing against that. He's also going to talk to us about China, which is someplace he's been. Then we'll also be talking to Christopher Helali, who is running for Congress in Vermont. But our first guest, who we're going to get to in a few minutes, is Lisa Savage, who is running for Senate in Maine. So it's a savage lineup.
Wow, it really is. That's a lot of people. Yeah,
it's a lot of people. Yeah. But anyway, so Anderson Cooper went to this high school that I went to, which was this, fancy private high school on the Upper East Side. And he was apparently they did put on a production of Fiddler on the Roof.
Mm-hmm.
And he played, I don't know, Tevye, I think. And apparently he told this story that like one of the Jewish grandparents who was in the audience was like, they found the one goyim to play Tevye or something like that.
Bizarre.
Bizarre, yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about from your week, Jack?
My week, well, we had a big show. We had a very cool show on just Friday, 2 nights ago. That was great with Ronnie Akalik, Pretty Bad Lefty, Brandon Sutton, and Abby Martin. That was a very fun show. That was pretty much the big thing of my week. You know what I mean?
The post-show glory of that.
I've been working on I'm trying to build a new PC, so that's very exciting for me.
Oh, you're one of those. Wow.
Oh, I am. I really am.
That kind of brain. Okay. Awesome. Interesting.
I'm trying to build a new PC these days.
I thought I had something really clever going where I was trying to blackmail celebrities into promising us something.
Right. Yeah.
People weren't really feeling it on the show. And
well, I think it's because the celebrities don't really believe in anything. You know what I mean? I think that it just won't work is the unfortunate problem.
Right, but all the better. Like, look, we're going to own them or we're going to move them. And so at least we'll be able to say, look, Deborah Messing refused to call for Joe Biden to embrace the Green New Deal.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we should. I just feel like I'm going to feel like if I'm adding, Deborah Messing being like support, I'm like, I don't even want to be talking to Deborah Messing. You know what I mean? I think it's a good movement. You should do it.
Right? I'll lead it.
It's a good movement.
I'll lead it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get back to that. Anyway, but this is the time in the show where I want to urge everyone to like the show. You just do a little like. You subscribe to this channel and share it. Share it, guys. Share the love because we want to make sure that people don't be stingy. Not everyone knows about this show. I mean, most people do, but there are some people, some poor heathen souls out there who have not been exposed. They have not heard about this show yet, and they really, really need to. So make sure you just you do that right now. Do a little share. I'm just sharing it on Instagram. A little image of it. Seriously, how many shows like this do you watch where you get to see me, Jack, Jonathan Tipton Mayers writes, Katie, you went to Dalton. Anderson was year below. Yep, I went to Dalton. He was older than me. Yeah. But how many shows can you see stuff like, okay, well, Yabbits, I appreciate that you're subscribed. So, what you could do, write to your best friend and say, best friend, are you subscribed? I feel like you should be subscribed. That's the gift of giving.
That's what you have to do. Write it on a postcard. That way it really feels. That way it really feels, personal and personal. Yeah, exactly.
It feels old school. Yeah, it feels old school. Take back the postcard. That's what I think.
We need to save the post office anyway. Everyone was talking about how great the post office is.
You know what? Put your money where your mouth is.
Go send your friend a postcard saying to like this show.
Mask up. Big time mask up.
Yeah.
Glove up.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, wash your hands and all that stuff. But between those 2 points, go out, buy a postcard, support your local postcardery place.
It's a good way to support the show and the post office.
Support the show and the post office. You know what else you can do? In this age of texting, pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone and say, hey, you know what? It's been a while. I really miss you. And I want to reach out to you and say, I miss you. Please take care of yourself.
Call someone you haven't talked to in a long time.
Yes. Find that friend who you really owe a favor to and be like, you know what? I'm sorry I didn't show up to your wedding. I'm sorry I didn't RSVP to it. I'm sorry when you invited me to your kid's baptism and I was supposed to be the godfather. I forgot.
Find someone you owe. Yeah,
Find someone you owe and be like, but I'm going to pay you back more than you could even imagine. Because I'm going to introduce you to the Katie Halper Show.
Pretty good. Yeah, I think so.
Pretty good. Johnny John
Yeah.
134. He's a subscriber and a donor now. Wow, that's really great. So we're gonna talk more about stuff like let's get into the Obama stuff. And if anyone has
sure.
any clips that you want us to get into, like any media fails, we're very open to that because this is democracy. And yes, Dalton is the school where Jeffrey Epstein got a teaching gig.
Wow.
It was before my time. Yeah.
Wow.
But so let's just get on with the show because I'm very excited to be bringing on someone who, because the world is the way it is, the corporate media is not very interested in getting on voices that are outside of the duopoly. But you know who is interested in this?
Who's that? You
Us.
and me.
And you.
Yeah, we're the ones. Yeah, obviously it's us. This is who we're talking about.
We gotta come for a word with that a leftist community, but we need to define that. After we interview our next guest, we're gonna come up with some really harsh parameters. We're
the leftiverse or something.
The leftiverse, yeah, yeah, exactly. So, without any further ado, we are adding to the chat. So excited to hear from her, Lisa Savage.
Hey,
Lisa.
Katie.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Good. How are you?
What's going on? I'm Jack. Nice to meet you,
Jack.
Lisa.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So please tell us what inspired you to grab onto the reins and run.
Yeah, really. Well, I was a public school teacher for 25 years in Central Maine. I live in the 2nd District. It's the rural, poor part of Maine. And the families around me were just barely hanging on economically, even long before the pandemic hit. Almost nobody had adequate health insurance. Nobody had dental coverage of any kind. People were housing insecure. Kids would come to school. I got evicted last night. Say their little kids will tell you, my mom doesn't have any food in the cupboard right now. So I was already aware that there were a lot of, systemic problems in my area. And when I was approached by some Green Party elders, not this past summer, but a year ago summer, to say, hey, it's ranked choice voting. Your incumbent, Susan Collins, is the least popular senator in the country right now. Would you consider running? Now, they weren't just sort of pulling some school teacher out of obscurity, because I had been organizing around climate and militarism, a lot of anti-war stuff, but in recent years, especially focusing on the role that the Pentagon plays in driving the climate crisis and how most people don't know anything about that. And when you try to push back on it, they always go, oh, but it's such a great jobs program. And it isn't such a great jobs program. Actually, it's a crappy jobs program. You get half again as many jobs by building something we need, like clean energy systems or light rail, public transportation Maine doesn't have. So I really thought about it. I talked to my family. Everybody was super supportive. A lot of my friends in the peace and social justice community here in Maine and environmental activists were like, yeah, let's do this. We'll all do it together. So it's been a year now, a very eventful year. I did get on the ballot, but I had to unenroll from the Green Party because Maine's ballot access rules are purposely discriminatory against third parties. We even got the Secretary of State, or a journalist got the Secretary of State to admit that in the Bangor Daily News. Wow. So when I unenrolled as a Green and just ran as an independent, we got more than twice the signatures we needed in one day on Super Tuesday. We just stood outside the polls on Super Tuesday and got over 9,000 signatures. Only needed 4,000. Then the pandemic hit. So all our signatures were like in city clerk's offices that were closed for the foreseeable future. We ended up turning in our signatures without a single signature from Portland, Maine, which is Maine's biggest city and really only city of any size. But because we have ballot access as an independent, we've been, the Maine media Maine is one big small town, I always say. And like, I know Chris Hedges. I was just watching your interview with Chris Hedges. He has a Maine connection. I've heard him speak many times.
Right. Yeah.
My husband and I were just watching your interview with him, and at the end of it, we're always like, oh, so bracing. He always tells the truth. He's so right on.
Yeah.
Most people who hear Chris Hedges speak are always like, oh, so depressed. Do we have to have him back again?
Right. And you're like, you're thrilled, right?
It's just great to hear someone speak the truth. But anyway, we have gotten a lot of attention from the media here in Maine because there isn't a lot going on. National media has, we've gotten some mentions. Bill McKibben put us in his climate newsletter in the
Nice.
New Yorker
Okay.
magazine, so can't complain about that. And that was mostly on the basis of this work. I've been in a coalition pressuring General Dynamics, which owns the Bath Iron Works shipyard here in Maine, to convert to building stuff we need instead of building warships. Because if you'd stop building warships, that is one win for climate right there, because warships are horribly polluting and terrible for climate. Then if you would build something we need, either like a train system or clean energy systems, that is a second win for climate. Then it's also a win for jobs, as I mentioned. So, and people always go, oh, we couldn't do it. Where's the money? Well, you know how much money the Pentagon gets every year? Right now, they're at, this year, Democrats and Republicans voted to give them about $750 billion.
Wow.
That's an artificially low figure. All the nuclear weapons are hidden in the Energy Department budget. The VA is its own budget line. The VA costs us 6.5% a year of the federal discretionary budget. I don't want to underfund the VA, but if you are, and then all that CIA black ops stuff that's so secret and that we can't even know about it, there's the taxpayers are on the hook for that too. So if you add it all together, really the cost of militarism in this country is something like 70% of the federal budget every year. It's craziness. It's unsustainable. It's wrecking the climate. The Pentagon is the biggest fossil fuel consumer of any organization on Earth. And if you ranked it with nations for its greenhouse gas emissions, there are 140 nations that are better than the Pentagon in terms of how much greenhouse gases they emit. So, what could be bad about this? People are always like, oh, how are you going to pay for it? Easy, cut the Pentagon budget. And the thing is, they're always like, oh, it's a shipyard. It can't build just anything. Well, guess what? At the beginning of the pandemic, they had national defense production money, which is like a thing to, during wartime, it's been used to, build what you need. So they went to there was a kind of COVID swab before they just started using Q-tips that was specialized, and there were only a couple places that made it. And one of them was in Maine. And they asked them, can you double production? They were like, well, we would need more of the machines. So they called up this shipyard and said, could you make more of these machines? We have federal contracting money right here for it. Of course, they said yes.
Right.
Within a month or 5 weeks, they had delivered the machines. So, it's possible. It's been done. If you dangle a fat federal contract in front of General Dynamics, they will take the contract.
Right. It's hard to say no, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of my claim to fame. And the Green New Deal, was developed by the Green Party way back when. And the Democrats have kind of adopted the nomenclature and watered it down quite a bit. But that's what a real new Green New Deal would be. It's demilitarized, and it's converting your military industrial complex to addressing climate emergency like it's an emergency.
Right. As if it really were, because it is.
Because it is. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Can you tell us about, a lot of people, you guys are lucky in Maine. You have ranked choice voting. Can you tell people about what ranked choice voting is and the history of it? Yeah, sure. We got ranked choice voting because we have those citizens referendum structure here where we can pass. I mean, it's not really passing a law because the legislature still has to enact the law, but twice a strong majority voted to have ranked choice voting. Sometimes it's called instant runoff voting, and in a way it makes a little more sense if you call it that, because the way it works is this. There are four people on the ballot in my race. There's the incumbent, Susan Collins. There's a really corporate centrist Democrat that doesn't want Medicare for all, doesn't want a Green New Deal. There's myself, and there's another independent who's to the right of Susan Collins, big Donald Trump supporter. Wow. So three boos and a cheer. Lisa's the cheer.
Right. So when you go to vote, I did this today. I made a little video of me voting in my pajamas. My husband used my cell phone. And because Maine has absentee voting with no excuse. We have early voting. We've been early voting for weeks now. You can just do it at home. And so your ballot looks disturbingly like a standardized test. Because you bubble in.
Right.
As being a teacher for many years, I know that many kids just bubble in the shape of a Christmas tree or spell out their name, because they don't want to take standardized tests. But what you do is you pick the candidate you want. So rank Lisa first. Mainers that are out there listening, please rank Lisa first. And you bubble in the first bubble next to that person. Then you go on to your, okay, I'm voting my values here. I want Medicare for all. I want a Green New Deal. I want an end to endless wars. But now I'm afraid Susan Collins will get reelected. So for my second ranking, I'm going to vote blue number 2. I'm going to pick the Democrat. And then, you can either pick the other independent or you can pick Susan Collins, whatever. And even our presidential ballot looks like that. So today I voted for Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker first. I was thrilled to do it. Honestly,
then Bernie Sanders. Just kidding.
Probably would have done it anyway. We didn't have ranked choice, but because I live in the 2nd district, and the 2nd district voted for Trump last time and Maine splits our electoral votes. We have 4, but some of them are awarded on the basis of the popular vote in the congressional district. We only have 2 congressional districts. So, and then when they go to count the ballots, all those early ballots will be held until election, polls close on election day. They do the first round count. And if anybody got a majority of the votes, that's 50% plus 1 vote, then game over. The instant runoff doesn't kick in. That person won the election. But if nobody gets a majority, which is very likely in the race I'm in because nobody has been polling that high, least of all the incumbent, then they send all the ballots to the Secretary of State and they run the second ranking. And what they do is they go, okay, who got the fewest votes? Cross that person off. They're now out of the election. People that picked that candidate first, who did they pick second? And then they transfer those second votes to the other candidates. Now, does anybody have a majority? If yes, game over. If no, they'll do it again to the next lowest name on the list. And that unseated a very unpopular GOP incumbent in the 2nd District Congressional House of Representatives last time in 2018. We had this guy, Bruce Poliquin. He was a Wall Street darling, not popular in Maine. And he was mostly famous for ducking into the ladies' room because a journalist was trying to ask him some questions and he accidentally went in the wrong bathroom.
Maybe he's just trying to dismantle the patriarchy, but anyway.
Or come out, or I don't know what he was doing. But anyway, he was avoiding a journalist, never held town halls, unresponsive to constituents. And he was being challenged by a fairly young guy that was in the Maine legislature, not a big household name. And then a couple independents. Well, nobody, when the first round was counted, the incumbent, Bruce Poliquin, was ahead, but he didn't have a majority. So they did that process I was talking about of crossing the independents off, redistributing their seconds. And after they were done, lo and behold, Jared Golden, the challenger, the Democrat, took the seat. Wow. So there's precedent here in Maine for, people still want to say, oh, aren't you going to spoil the election? Right. I wish you'd just drop out. And I'm always like, my presence in the race increases the chance of unseating an unpopular conservative incumbent because people that rank me first aren't going to rank Susan Collins second. And people that rank the Democrat first aren't going to rank Susan Collins second. Right. And I will and voters will come out to vote for a candidate like me because they want Medicare for all, because they want a Green New Deal and an end to the wars. That if it was just some corporate Democrat, a lot of times people, especially younger voters, are like, meh.
Right. Not going to do it. Yeah. And just looking at your Twitter, they were planning a debate without you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So there've been 4 debates so far that we were included in. Not to brag, most people say, oh, you won the debate, Lisa, because here's the thing. The Democrat and the Republican have run against each other. They have never mentioned the words ranked choice voting. They act like it's just a 2-person race, and they're just constantly creating this false dichotomy of how different they are because, of course, the more alike the 2 corporate parties are, they're taking money from the same corporate interests. They have to create this huge, show of being so super different. So they have spent tens of millions of dollars attacking each other, lying about each other, calling each other liars. It's been really nasty. It's not the Maine style at all. It has not sat well with voters. So when we get into the debates, like most, professional politicians, when they're asked a question, they just start reciting their talking points that are about that. And all the debates have been set up so that if you get criticized by someone else, you get rebuttal time. So they both just criticize each other and get extra time rebutting that. But they, at least they have included me. And I've gotten so much feedback saying, wow, Lisa, you actually answered the questions. Wow, you actually sounded like You knew what you were talking about. And you talked about issues that are important to us rather than attacking anyone else in the race. So,
Right.
good job. I'm ranking you first.
Nice.
Well, then we got wind. So the last debate was last Thursday. And I did a kind of unusual thing that I was really thrilled about doing. And that is I gave my closing statement over to a Black Lives Matter Maine activist, Hamdia Ahmed, who I knew, and Maine's one big small town. She's 22 years old. She was formerly a Somali refugee who's first person in her family to graduate college. And she came to the hotel. We had to do it remote because Susan Collins was back in Washington in the Senate. So we were all Zooming. And so Hamdia came to the hotel room where I was doing it from. And I started talking about her. And then I just stepped out and she gave a Black Lives Matter closing statement. So it was pretty cool. I was afraid they might cut her off. They didn't. Anyway, we have gotten wind of the fact that there is a fifth debate that we were not invited to. Only the Democrat and the Republican were invited.
Wow.
So the other guy, the other independent, Max Lynn, got lawyered up and said, let's file a complaint with the FEC because if you keep candidates out of a debate just solely on the basis of their party, that is considered a campaign contribution, and corporations are not allowed to make campaign contributions. And the fine is something like double the value of the campaign contribution. Well, an hour of primetime TV is pretty valuable campaign contribution. Anyway, we have a petition up on my website, lisaformaine.org, where people can sign and say, we want to see Lisa debate again. And we've been sharing the phone number of WMTW TV in Maine, Channel 8, to let people call in and say, hey, we have really enjoyed seeing Lisa in those other debates. We think you should include her. And then, so there's kind of an inside, which is the legal action, outside pressure. I think they'll cave because I don't think they'll want to pay the fine. But in any case, we will go to the debate venue. I will be outside and I'll answer the questions, on YouTube if they don't let me into the debate studio.
And when is this debate?
It's Wednesday, this coming Wednesday.
So we don't have a lot of time. Are they open now, this place?
WMTW, probably not. But
should I call them and leave a message?
Sure.
Yeah, what's their number? Let's do it now.
I'd have to look at it.
Jack, we should do this, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, this is great.
There's no power like the power of today.
Yeah, do it.
Lisa, we'll give you a couple seconds or minutes to get this. You just give us a thumbs up when you're ready, and Jack and I are going to reflect on this. What do you think of this, Jack?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. Let's give him a call, tell him this is messed up, and let her in.
It's so messed up. And it's like, this is such a great opportunity. I love it. I love it's like look, we get it. We all have friends and loved ones who feel like third party or independents. Oh my God. Wow. Wait, guys, there is a bug crawling. Hold on. I got to take a photo of this. We all have friends who are afraid of third party or independent people ruining things. And the nice thing about rank, one second, I'm multitasking. I'm capturing some kind of strange bug. And I'm also talking about ranked choice voting with Jack. And we're also waiting for Lisa to get us the number to call. I feel like I don't believe in God, but I feel like maybe I believe in, what's it called? Mama Pachamama.
I don't know. I don't know the name.
I feel like the elements are coming together. We got everything coming together. Gives me time to film this terrible insect.
Yeah.
Gives Lisa time to get the number. Gives you time to just kind of hold the space for us, Jack.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's really scary. I feel like Julian Assange.
Wow.
Yeah. The people want a clear ice update, by the way. From you.
I haven't really been doing as many clear harvests these days. I did perfect it, but my wife's been using the cooler for to go to picnics and things like that, outdoor, socially distanced things. Right. So the cooler hasn't been used for ice.
The cooler's not been used for ice. Okay, that's okay.
Not lately, no.
I'm looking, did I find the number? No, I found the petition.
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, great. This is good because this is all right. So yeah, give me the number and I'm gonna put this on speaker.
So this is WMTW TV in Maine. It's 207 835 3888.
Okay. Jack, should I try to put you in the call?
Thank you for calling calling
I don't think they'll be able to hear.
Total weather.
Well, I can tell you things.
Yeah, what would you like?
Regular business hours
Say they're going to get sued if they're not going to. They're going to get sued if they don't let me. Yeah, we can hear. We can hear.
Cancellation. Press 1 now. If you are interested in television, digital, or multimedia sales, press 2. For the business office, press 3. Programming, press 4. For our creative services department, press 5. To reach engineering, press 6. Production department, press 7.
Called production?
For closed captioning, press 8. If you'd like to leave a message in our general mailbox,
right?
please press 9.
Yeah, just call 9.
Thank you for calling Channel 8 WMTW. Sorry, WMTW general mailbox is not available.
Are you?
Wow, terrible.
When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Wow, terrible.
Hi, this is Katie Halper. I'm a host of a podcast live stream. I also co-host a Rolling Stone podcast with Matt Taibbi. I'm calling you live on Sunday night at 7:37. I'm very disturbed. I'm live streaming this message, by the way. I'm disturbed about a couple things. One is that you say that this is not a functioning machine, and yet you encourage me or the callers to leave a message, which I find inconsistent and inconsiderate and incoherent. But there's another thing I want to tell you about. I will not stand by while you censor, exclude people from a debate. And I'm talking about Lisa Savage and that other independent whose politics I don't really like, but whatever. But free speech is free speech, and democratizing politics is democratizing politics. So I want you to know, tell us, I'll stay on hold overnight until you pick up. Tell me, tell Lisa Savage, tell my co-host Jack Allison, tell listeners who you think you are that you can have these debates where you just exclude people. It's really not acceptable. And not only is this wrong, you're out of luck because this isn't always the case because the law is such a tool of the, capitalist class. But in this case, you're going to have to pay a fine. So you're going to be on the wrong side of history and you're going to have to pay a fine. And we will call you every day from this show. Well, 2 days a week, let's say. Once a week, we'll call you until you pay that fine off. But hopefully that'll be avoided. Let's make some TikToks about this, guys. I have some young listeners out there. You're not going to want to get TikToked.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you don't want to get TikToked.
Yeah, and you guys are canceled. And you know what? This really breaks my heart because I am someone who has some family living in Maine. So I feel like I'm part of that community. And this is just
very
unacceptable.
Sad.
Very sad. Jack, do you have anything to add? Or Lisa?
I just think that it's very sad. Just tell them I think it's very sad as well.
It's very sad. My co-host thinks it's very sad.
I've got 1,800 people who've signed a petition saying they want to see me debate. 700 have signed in the last 24 hours.
3, to re-record it. 4,
I'm going to send it.
Your message.
Yeah, go ahead and send it.
Oh,
if
sorry.
you'd like to try an extension, you may do so now.
All right, so we got that. You're on notice, WMTW.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we just, honestly, if that didn't work, then I don't even want to know about WM whatever thing. Because they're dead to me. And that's a big deal. Because I consider Maine television a part of my heritage. Because I have some Maine relatives. Anyway, Lisa, we're going to get you into that debate. Tell us more. Tell our listeners more about what they need to do. I'm going to say something. It's a little critical. Yep. A lot of Green Party people have a kind of public access television vibe to them, and you don't have that. So do you have any tips to offer your fellow Green Party people about what it is to do? How does one tap into that more media savvy, telegenic presence?
I used to work in advertising years ago when I lived in California, and my dad was a politician. My mom was an actress. I was trained as a journalist. I owned a small business for a while, and then I went into school teaching, basically because I had 3 kids at home, and I wanted to stay in Maine, and it was that or work at the paper mill. So I became a school teacher, which is essentially a communications job. Yeah, but I kept on organizing. I kept on learning I was a blogger. I mean, I've given up so much for this campaign. I loved writing my blog because whenever I felt like my head was going to explode, I would write a blog post about, I'd read current events.
Right.
So I guess I would say, think like a journalist and think about your audience. A lot of people think communicating is like it's broadcast. I have a message I'm putting
Right.
out, but communicating
Right.
is only when you connected with your audience.
Right.
So, and as a school teacher, I taught adolescents for years. Like you can tell from their body language in about 2 seconds whether they're with you or they're not. Check out your audience frequently and see are they listening still,
Right.
or have
Right.
I lost them?
And they don't BS you the way adults may.
Right. They would just throw chairs or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, most of the kids that I taught are old enough to vote. And I have gotten tons of supportive comments from them
Oh, that's
on
great.
social media.
Wow.
The last debate last week was the Maine Chamber of Commerce sponsored it. And the email that came inviting us said, the final paragraph was, I believe Lisa Savage was my 5th grade teacher at Belgrade Elementary School. Please send her my best regards. And it was like, the assistant to the head of the Maine Chamber
Right.
of Commerce or whatever. So
Wow.
that's my secret weapon.
Wow. Yeah. You taught them
one way
well.
to build
My
a base.
former
Yeah.
students.
Yeah. Wow. And they turned out supporting you. I mean, not everyone who works at the Chamber of Commerce is going to be for someone like you.
That's right. I don't really know whether she'll vote for me, but she remembered me. Savage is a fairly common name in Maine, but it's usually like super right-wing Republicans. I have a lot of white privilege here. My ancestors definitely stole land from indigenous people so that they could have an ice company cutting ice out of the Kennebec River and selling it. And, I've been lucky enough to get a good education and be able to live here in Maine and bring my children up and stuff. I just feel like you got to acknowledge that stuff. And one of the biggest ways that people know my name recently is for the last, it happened about a year and a half ago, but for years, we were trying to get the final Native American mascot in Maine schools retired. And it happened to be the high school that my dad went to, his dad went to, my nephews and great nephews went to. And it was the Skowhegan Indians. So I started going to school board meetings with my sister also. And, all the ones that didn't want to change it would be like, we can't give up our traditions. And we would stand up and go, well, we've been here for eight generations. Here's my dad. I'm wearing my dad's letter sweater. Do you see any Indians on it?
Right.
It just has a big ass. And, it was led by Wabanaki, the, tribes in Maine, the Wabanaki Confederation. And they were the leaders, but I was really, honored to stand with them as an ally. And we not only finally got the school board to replace the mascot, but we got a law passed at the state level saying it's illegal to have Native-themed mascots in a public school in Maine. So, again, Maine is kind of a small pond, but if you're involved in active in politics and stuff, people get to know you. They know your name. They know who you are. So people keep telling me I can't possibly win. Most of the polls have ignored us. Some polls have polled us. The highest we've ever polled, I think, is like 6.5%. But that's first round. Second round, we always beat all the other candidates. We get more number 2s than anybody else.
Wow. Yeah. So imagine if they actually gave you a, presence in the real world the way that they should. It's really disgusting. And that's amazing. And ranked choice voting, I think Chance the Rapper supports ranked choice voting. So you should try to get him to maybe give you guys right, Jack? You're in Hollywood. You probably know people who know Chance the Rapper.
Chance the Rapper's a Chicago guy. He's
in the world, the milieu.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I know people who know Chance, but maybe I'll start making some calls. I'll send some texts right now.
Text Jimmy Kimmel
and ask for.
Hey, look, I know we've had some. There's some, but that's water on the bridge. The priority now is defeating Trump and getting Lisa Savage more visibility.
Defeating Trump is the most important thing. Yeah, this is how we do it.
So just to shout out to Massachusetts and Alaska, they have ranked choice voting on their ballots this November, where they could pass it statewide. They could have it for their statewide elections.
Who should I get on from those states? I need to get some people on.
We had this great woman named Liz Popolo who did a webinar with us about ranked choice voting. She's an organizer in Massachusetts. She was very knowledgeable. She really knew about it in the 50 states, but she was working in Massachusetts. She was really good. I could send you her contact info.
Yeah, great.
And so ranked choice voting, both the corporate parties really hate it because it really increases the voice of the people in elections. And I know that Chris Hedges thinks that hope is a childish thing that we
Mania,
indulge
childish
in.
mania. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
But
I have grandchildren. I have to be hopeful for their
Right.
sake.
Right.
And I'm just going to, keep doing what I doing as long as I can do it and not give up.
I agree. Yeah, there's a difference between delusion and delusional ignorance and resigned pessimism. I think you got to find that sweet spot where you're still, you're dealing with what's in front of you. You're aware of that, but you got to fight for something.
Yep.
Right.
Because if not, also it's not fun.
You can be realistic. You can be realistic, but still try for the best. You know what I mean? Like you can say it's hard and the shots are long, but somebody still has to give it a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you guys seen the Chicago 7 movie?
No, I haven't.
I haven't watched it yet. No.
Seen it yet?
So entertaining, so
okay.
inspiring. A lot of archival footage. I was a child when that was happening. I couldn't participate, but I was looking on with wide eyes going, wow.
Yeah.
And it's very inspiring. It'll make you want to go
exactly.
out.
Abby Hoffman is a great example of that. A lot of people have a lot of issues with him, but he was very good at realizing the role of fun and entertainment and joy in politics, because without that it's so boring.
And that comes across really strong. And them getting Sacha Baron Cohen to play him was brilliant casting.
I gotta see it. And wait, you said your father was a politician and your mother was an actress. So what kind of politics did he have?
Well, I grew up in California. My mother was from California, so I was born in Maine, and then we moved to California. I went there through high school and then came back to Maine to go to college and stuff. But my dad was a city councilor in Pacifica, California, where I went to high school. And then his mom became elderly and needed care. He moved back to Maine, and he was running for the Maine House when he died suddenly in 1988 of a heart attack.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And he left an operating business that then my brother and I ran as a family business for several years. But my dad, I was really lucky. When I was about maybe 6 or 7, my dad said, you're white. That doesn't make you better than other people, but it does make you lucky, because many doors will be open to you that would not be open to you if you were not white. And so he didn't use the word white privilege exactly, but he explained the concept. And he also was saying things to me, when I was growing up, like, well, I don't see why garbage collectors don't get paid as much as doctors. They contribute at least as much to the public health. Why do we have so he was a populist and very egalitarian in his thinking. And so he had a big influence on me, I think. And my mom really was like, she was one of those little children clinging to those trucks leaving Oklahoma in the Dust Bowl. She was really poor as a child, but her parents were hardworking and had birth control figured out, had 2 children, 7 years apart, and managed to move into town and send them to a good high school. And they were like saved by free public education. So all the years when I was teaching kids in what's essentially northern Appalachia, is the part of Maine I live in, and they'd be like, we're being oppressed by this free public education. I would tell them my mom's story and be like, you don't need to like school for me to respect you, but you're never going to convince me that this is not a gift that's being offered to you, should you care to accept it.
Right.
I've traveled, and people in other countries would crawl over broken glass to get a free public high school education for their children. Right. So a big thing here in Maine is we do have a lot of immigrants. Maine was what's the right word for it? When we took in, sanctuary state for a long time. Thank you. So we have had a lot of waves of immigration from places that are experiencing. From New Hampshire. Yeah, no, we keep them out. Yeah. They should live, freeze, and die.
Exactly. Totally.
But anytime I talk to immigrant parents in Maine about what are your chief concerns, most people in Maine would say healthcare, because we don't have any, or jobs, because we don't have any. Immigrant parents always go education, fully funded education. Why did I go through all this to come here? So my children could get an education.
What countries, what are the most represented?
Do people come from?
Yeah.
Somalia was an original place that people were coming from. Then Sudan, more lately, Democratic Republic of Congo. A lot of the Congo people came across to Central America, came up across the border, and as soon as they got to Texas, they just put them on a Greyhound bus and sent them to Portland, Maine, and with nothing, and just dumped them off in Portland. But I'm proud of my state. We've always rallied to say, "Hey, new Mainers, we need them. We're the whitest state and the oldest state."
Yeah.
You know, my kids don't live here. You can't. It's hard to earn a living here.
Yeah.
So we really need new Mainers. Also, a lot of them are farmers. The Somali Bantu farmers have been a huge, like sort of growth industry, and food insecurity is probably the biggest climate crisis thing we should all be worried about.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
They should do webinars, seriously, Zooms in this. I mean, they should be showing people how it's done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was great. And everyone, check out Lisa's social media. Sign that pledge, that petition.
Yes, thank you.
And what's your social media so people know how to follow you?
It's at Lisa4, spelled out FOR, like the sign Maine. And our website is lisa4maine.org. And we got 9 more days. So with a medal. We'd love, if you can support us with a donation, we'd love that. We're still taking volunteers. We have many volunteers from outside Maine that would like to see Susan Collins retire. So, go through the website and tell us how to get in touch with you and what you like to do. And
awesome. Yeah, we'll put the link in there. And you guys, it's in the description all the way. Thank you, Kelly, by the way. It's in the description. But, it's good to hear. People like sometimes hearing, not just listening, not just reading.
That's right.
And you guys, lest anyone forget, in case any of you have forgotten, Susan Collins is the woman who pretended to have some major conflict over whether or not to vote for Kavanaugh, and then of course wound up voting for Kavanaugh. So she's terrible.
Yeah.
So terrible. You know why the post office is in such bad shape? Because of the bill she wrote long before Kavanaugh, where, they have to fund their pensions.
Oh, wow. She did that.
Healthcare out 75 years, which
terrible.
No one has to do.
Right.
She passed the bad tax law that robs from the poor and gives to the already wealthy. She, when she had a chance to impeach the president, she didn't do it. So she's got a long rap sheet at this point.
Yeah. So lock her up, guys. Don't vote for Susan Collins. Lock her up and vote for Lisa. Lisa's not saying that. I'm saying that as an independent observer.
Voice.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Lisa. This was great. And best of luck. Hopefully we'll watch you on Wednesday night.
Okay, great. Thank you, Katie.
Great.
Thank you, Jack.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Bye. That was great, right?
Yeah, that was great. She, what a wild thing that they're trying to keep her. I mean, it's wild how much they block even at such a small level. You know what I mean? It's why do you have to block every single? You have to block every single race at every single state. You know what I mean?
The domino.
Yeah,
the dominoes.
Just is wild. Yeah,
it's true. Look, Eisenhower told us about that. In fact, I think we brought this up last episode. Yeah, when we were talking about Bolivia. Telling you, it's real.
Yeah.
You may not like Eisenhower, but he was pretty onto certain things. He warned us about the prison, the military-industrial complex, and he explained the domino theory.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, this is that's the way it is. Any leftward movement has to be crushed countrywide.
Right.
It's
kind of like
when you check in with all these cases, it's just it's like whack-a-mole or whatever. They're just with every single case.
Yeah, whack them all. See what I did there? Tracy O'Keefe says Lisa Savage is natural and genuine. I agree. That's why I was asking the whole question about the public access dynamic and how she overcame that. Right. So we're going to bring in our next guest. We're so excited because like Lisa, this is someone who is not part of, I would say, the duopoly, right? Mm-hmm. Has some stuff in common with her, some stuff not in common with her. Very interesting biography, by the way. And this is that time in the show where I'm just going to urge everyone to just pause what you're doing, like this show, subscribe to it, maybe give your friend a call. Remember we were talking about earlier? Or just tweet.
Or
Facebook,
the postcard too.
Yeah, but we don't want you to leave. We want you to stay. But get mentally prepared. Get into that mental space, that psychological space of buying a stamp and a postcard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Trump and Biden on 60 Minutes. If it were, I don't know why I read that out loud.
We've already seen the Trump one. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
if you
right.
watched it, that he posted it to Facebook, so we've already seen him. By the way, he just looks like a whiny baby, but like
Yeah,
he for some reason posted it anyway.
He's kind of lost it with that. He doesn't get that when you're president for that long, you don't get to play the underdog. To be fair, though, the media is so overtly biased against him.
It's true, and I get why with him he'd be like, it really is unfair, but like, you just look like a whiner when you're the most powerful man on earth, being like, that question's mean. Yep. You know,
very rude. That question's very rude. I'm making sense to you, Jewy, but anyway, very rude. I can't do it anyway. So speaking of fairness, let's bring on our next guest. It's a good transition, right?
Yeah, I think that was fun.
Yes, and his name is Christopher Helali, and he's running for Congress in the great state of Vermont. Christopher, hello.
Hello.
Hey there, Christopher.
I'm doing well. Great to be on with you both.
Yes, thanks for coming. You're one of my favorite Northeastern communist candidates currently running for office, so I felt like I had to have you on. But yeah. No, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Starting from I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I guess your biography. You come from a interfaith home. Can you just talk about that and how that shaped your trajectory and your ideology?
Sure. So I was born in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm an immigrant, child of immigrants. So my mom was born in Canada from, parents who fled the Greek Civil War after the communists lost the Greek Civil War. That was the first conflict of the Cold War. Most people don't recognize it, but it started in 1944. Our family were communists, and they fought against the Nazis, the Italians, the Bulgarians, and then the American and British-backed monarcho-fascist gangs, and we lost. I
saw Captain Corelli's. Oh, sorry. I saw Captain Corelli's mandolin. So yeah. Anyway, I cut you off.
You have a little bit of taste of the conflict. Exactly. And then my dad's from Iran. So
sorry, I cut you off right when you were saying you lost family members there. So I didn't want to talk over you. So what were you?
No, it's okay. I have been working on research now on the execution of my grandfather's brother in 1947, which was a momentous event even in world history, and it was spoken about by 2 senators in the Congress. His execution. He was executed with another 31 other political prisoners who were communists. Wow. So it was so brutal that they said they shouldn't do the Truman Doctrine, but Truman did it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So wait, who senators in the United States mentioned it?
Yeah, one from Vermont and one from Colorado, and a Republican and Democrat.
See, both. Bernie's always been on the. I told you, Bernie was on the right side then. That's the benefit of having an older senator. He was not. Wow. Well, my mom's side, not to play communist geography with you or geology with you. My dad's uncle died in Spain. He's in a book. His name's Gene Wallman. He wrote a book, a letter back. It was really sad. He's like, if I get knocked off, then hopefully I won't know. I won't realize it.
Part of the international.
Yeah, he was with the Abraham Lincoln Brigade.
Wow, amazing! Yeah. What a hero.
Yeah, and so that's my dad's side of the family, and then my mom's side of the family, they were killed. They died. There's a monument to someone. They were communists, and they killed they were partisans, communists. I guess in Poland, Ukraine area. I can't remember. I think it's today. I don't remember. Anyway, we got to go. Let's go. We'll do. Jack, you'll come with me after the Christopher. We'll all go. We're gonna do a GoFundMe.
We're
gonna do an execution site tour. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have all the combat international, all the fits up. And we'll have to contend with the new Ukrainian government that happens to put up statues of Bandera and all these neo-Nazis. So
yes, exactly. Yeah, and we'll ask Hunter where to stay. We'll ask Hunter about the best accommodations. Which hotels we can stay. Help us up. So that's amazing. And he was a communist on that. That's your mom.
My mom's side all communist. My dad's side all like leftist, progressive, socialists. Today adjacent in Iran. So my dad grew up in Iran. Kurdish and Lur ancestry, and then he fought in the Iranian Revolution in 1979, but he left Iran before Ayatollah Khomeini came back. So he was fighting in the interim period when the Shah had fled, but before Khomeini came, and before Khomeini came back, he left Iran.
Got it. Yeah. Nice window.
It's a nice window. So of
please
course,
do.
I was born in the U.S. in the midst of all of this situation going on around the world. I was born at the end of the Cold War. Really, I mean, I'm still a red diaper baby, but it was only a few years later that the red banner fell atop the Kremlin, and there goes the end of history, like Fukuyama said.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah.
as we've seen, history hasn't ended. In fact, it's come back with a vengeance.
Right. First time, what is it? First time farce, then tragedy, or the other way around?
Right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
right. That's right.
So we're looking at that now. So grew up in
Great.
Worcester, very involved with the Palestinian movement, involved in the anti-war movement against the illegal invasion occupation of Iraq. I remember nostalgically my high school years when George Galloway debated Christopher Hitchens with Amy Goodman moderating. That was one of the most watershed moments of my life and my political ideological formation. Imagine I'm a high school kid that has a picture of Lenin on the wall, a red banner, Mao, and my other high school friends had pop stars or Ferraris.
They have John Lennon, and you have the other Lennon. Yeah.
My parents were really, really afraid for me. They were like, you can't show this in public. You can't be open about it. But I was open way before it became hip.
I actually have the video of the debate you're talking about. Hold on one second. Talk about Iraq. Well, Emil, let me start by saying that the war in Iraq. Okay, that was my impersonation of Amy Goodman. Talk about. Thank you. It's always a great impersonation when you have to tell people who you're impersonating. Like,
absolutely.
Anyway, and that was my Galloway. I was on a show today. You should go on a show. Have you done
it? I know. I love him. I'm such a huge fan. I actually did my high school report on him for comparative politics.
Oh, well, I'll tell his people and get you on.
I've messaged him. We've spoken. We've corresponded.
Okay. So. All right, got it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so you're in the end, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so, how? By the way, then we'll get to your campaign. How did your parents meet and overcome their
they met at the place where communists always meet, the discotheque.
Oh, okay, nice.
Of course. What brings in the U.S. here in the U.S. What brings people together? Imagine. I mean, disco was a revolutionary phenomenon. I mean, imagine like the rock against disco. Like disco was seen as somehow communist and subversive, and it's all these like crazy people because it was black and brown and indigenous, and it was LGBTQ friendly, and everybody was going wild. So my parents, of course, met at the place where they could, being immigrants to this country and not really welcome in other spaces. So,
what city was it? Don't tell me Worcester.
In Worcester.
Oh my God, there's disco in Worcester? Wow.
Oh yeah, of course.
Wow, I did not know that. Wow, cool. And so, how have you? What made you decide to run for office, and how have your politics shifted over time?
So in terms of, I'll go to the politics first, then I'll come to why I want to run. So, I was a sort of a Marxist-Leninist all throughout high school. Went into college.
Marxist-Leninist.
Marxist-Leninist, yeah.
They said Marxist-Zionist. Okay, it's Leninist.
Oh, God, no.
No, I didn't think so. Yeah.
So yeah, Marxist-Leninist. And then in college, I started doing a lot of critical theory, like yourself and others. We started reading all the classics. We started getting in depth. So then I started moving away from that. I started, taking in all of the Hannah Arendt and this and that, and oh my God, totalitarianism and all this stuff. So I moved to a more Marxist position. And eventually I find myself in anarchist and Maoist circles in grad school. And it was at that point where I decided to go to Syria. So I went and fought with the YPG and the International Freedom Battalion in Northeast Syria, in Rojava, for 9 months. And it was there where I realized, oh shit, I made a big mistake. That whole conflict is way more complex than people think. A lot of, I would say it's like a 4 or 5 dimensional chess in terms of alliances and history and who's with who and who's helping what. And, and simultaneously the Americans are there, but the Syrian Arab Army, and there's a big portrait of Assad there. And then, of course, I have the Kurds here. And next thing you know, French special forces and Hezbollah and Soleimani are across the river. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the third world war.
Soleimani. You have to give me a trigger warning when you mention him.
I know.
Very handsome man. Very handsome. Very good at memes.
A hero for the Iranian people, I think.
A hero for Katie Halper.
Regardless of all the bad things we can have criticisms with the Iranian government, whatever. But the biggest victor against the Islamic State. So that's it. That's it. Nobody can say other. I was there. Huge victory in Iraq, in Syria, and elsewhere. So
Did that.
it was after.
Was he married?
He was, and he had kids, of course. And some of his daughters, were at the funeral. I watched the whole thing. I watched it all. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
And of course, this country, they don't, the media, the talking heads were like, oh my God, horrible, terrorists, this and that. I said, what, terrorists? The guy was defending, his homeland and his people from the people we were supporting over there. All these Wahhabi Salafist jihadists running around chopping Christians' heads off, the Assyrians, Armenians, all this stuff. Kurds, it was crazy. Yazidis. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I've ended up, a utopian anarchist coming here, and I left again a Marxist-Leninist saying we need a party, we need discipline, we need organization, and a strong anti-imperialist perspective, having seen what U.S. imperialism was doing on the ground.
Right. So you left. So you became an anarchist. Then you went to. There's nothing can shift an anarchist. Nothing breaks whatever. Nothing.
Going to see anarchy.
Yeah, like a stateless. Yeah, like Syria. So yeah, how did that impact? How did that change your political perspective?
So number one, I went there, and of course, I bought into it's a revolution, and we're gonna go fight, and it's like Spanish Civil War round 2, and here we go, and Kobani was like Stalingrad, and then I went there, and I realized the PKK had complete control over the society. Complete.
So PKK, can you say what PKK stands for, just for people who don't know?
Kurdistan Workers' Party. That's the party of Abdullah Öcalan, and and I'll get into why that's such an interesting connection. But the PKK is basically the guerrilla force behind what was the Marxist-Leninist formation of Kurds fighting for a socialist Kurdistan. So the war started in Turkey. It originally was a people's war in Turkey, and it eventually spilled over into northern Iraq, where the PKK is based now in Kandil, right in between the borders of Turkey, Iraq, and Iran, in that mountain range. And then, of course, the interesting thing that anarchists don't like to acknowledge, and some of our fellow leftists in America, your Molly Crabapples and these kinds, they don't like to acknowledge that Abdullah Öcalan was the guest of who? Hafiz al-Assad for 20 years almost. Hafiz al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad's father, gave the Kurds weapons, support, logistics, bases in Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley, and their headquarters in Damascus. So I posted on my Twitter a picture of Abdullah Öcalan shaking hands with Jalal Talabani, the former president of Iraq, who's the head of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, with a big picture of Hafiz al-Assad behind them. Yeah. So of course, people are like, oh, the Kurds should have independence. I said, I don't really know, but I've been on the ground. I happen to be Kurdish. I was speaking with the people on the ground. They don't necessarily hate Assad. Right. Assad's a lot better than some other people in the neighborhood, So I started to realize that a lot of the propaganda we had been fed, and in graduate school, when you're fed all this human rights, liberal humanitarian intervention is bullshit. All of a sudden I go there and I said, oh my God, I had gotten rid of my high school beliefs only to realize that those were actually correct. Yeah. And that all the intellectual, your critical theory bullshit, I ended up realizing that the CIA had co-opted it all. Right. For their own ends.
Well, apparently in Judaism, when you convert, I don't know this, because if someone was going to marry me, they'd have to convert away from Judaism, because that's how not religious I am. But they apparently you have to be turned away 3 times, you try and fail 3 times or something. So that's kind of what you need one more round, though. You have to have your faith tested once more.
3 strikes, yeah.
To be honest with you, it was such a transformative experience. And of course, the biggest thing I saw on the ground was the bombardment of Raqqa. I was on the front line for 2.5 months in Raqqa phase 4 and phase 5. And if I tell you, I have never seen total war. You read it in history books, you watch documentaries, you'll see Oliver Stone's, Untold History of the United States. You'll watch all these movies and you'll say, oh, it's horrific. When you see it with your own eyes, it's exponentially worse. Because literally your heart is racing as you realize that house just went up in the air, meters, and somebody was in there and they're gone. That's it, obliterated. You'll never find anything. And so I saw the U.S. use white phosphorus. I saw the U.S. commit tremendous war crimes over there. And then I realized I'm involved. I'm a part of this situation. Here I am fighting in a quote-unquote revolution. I said, but if we're revolutionaries, we're fighting for the people. These Americans are not fighting for the coalition isn't fighting for the people. They're fighting for the oil. Of course, Trump tweets about it. Oh, yeah, we're only there for the oil. And of course, why? When I was in northeast Syria, we went to a base in the northeast, all the way to the border of Turkey. And there was this installation. So we went there. It was controlled by the YPG. We went there, we greeted, and all of a sudden I had studied in China prior to that. I have a master's degree from a Chinese university. So I looked and I saw Chinese calligraphy, you know, the characters, the calligraphy. And I said, what's this? And they said, oh yeah, you don't know? So I looked, it was Sinopec. It was the Chinese state oil company. Why? Because before I learned the Syrian civil war, the Chinese had made an agreement with the Assad government to exploit and develop the oil resources of Syria to have a business deal. So the US is not only controlling the oil, not only controlling the oil of Syria against Syria's, you know, sovereign right to its natural resources, so that Syria doesn't get it, Russia doesn't get it, Hezbollah doesn't get it in Syria, Iranian Quds Force doesn't get it, but so that China doesn't develop the multi-billion-dollar oil field that they have. So you can talk about this with Danny later on. But it was the most unique thing. I'm doing research on it now because it was so fascinating to realize that the oil fields are part of a much larger international project. So I said to myself, I came here idealistic, and I find myself a pawn in all big imperialist machinations here. So I said, fuck this, back to principled anti-imperialism. So, you know, I left after that. I left. I had a lot of disagreements, you know, with the leadership there. I came back. The war with ISIS was just. For me, I believe in that cause. Yeah. I fought against Daesh. I'm very proud of, you know, having done that on the front lines with tremendous comrades on all sides. But I realized that in the wider scheme of the conflict, there had been all of these double alliances. Somehow ISIS's leader, Baghdadi, was found in Idlib. That was actually an anti-ISIS that was controlled by Turkey and NATO forces, back jihadist forces. And it's like so confusing. And you realize there's a lot behind the scene, a lot going on behind the scene. And we weren't privy to it until we went there and all of a sudden realized, oh my God, we're in the midst of really a world war here in one country. And we can't be here. The Syrian people need to deal with their own things. The US has to get out, give up the areas. You know, it was horrible. It really was. And so looking back on it, the more I reflect on it, the more it shaped my now political stances, which are a very strong anti-imperialism, a very strong outspoken critic of the US's new Cold War with Russia and China, you know. And for me, this is a horrific escalation. I mean, we're talking about nuclear countries. We're talking about NATO aggression. You know, I mean, all these countries are surrounded by US bases. So in the midst of this, now we have a pandemic. I said, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. It's time to go out there. Not that I would win. I'm not, you know, I don't have delusions of grandeur. It would be nice. But then, of course, I told my comrades here, prepare for a funeral. Classic Middle Eastern, you know, prepare for a funeral. Yeah. I got the shawl. That's it. Because, you know, they killed JFK. I mean, I'm a communist. If they killed JFK, RFK, Dr. King, Malcolm X, they're going to definitely kill someone like me. So I said, okay. I know. I'm knocking on all the wood here.
Yeah. But, I think it's actually a statement of our weakness that they won't have to kill you. It's a sad statement.
Right.
Like we used to be kind of big.
Of the left in America.
Yeah. But so I mean, I was going to say like, but best, no, not but. There's no but after that. Don't want to be killed. So that's a yes, inshallah, or whatever. Anyway, yeah.
So I said, you know, now's the time, not necessarily to win, but to get our voices out there, because the conversation in this country has moved so far right, and nobody in the mainstream media covers alternative voices. They don't cover voices that are against the wars, against empire, against all of this brutality, against people abroad and people at home, especially people of color. So when you look at this stuff and you say, you know, now I had the opportunity to debate Representative Peter Welch. I had the opportunity to debate on a public forum. I had the opportunity to do a PBS, you know, TV spot. So I get to go up there and I get to use that platform to say, end these wars, end the empire, bring all this money home, close all the bases, end NATO. Let's build, if we can send people to the moon and we can have all of these military machinery and a nonstop bombing, we can provide free, universal, high-quality healthcare, education, and childcare to everybody here. And we flip the script. That's patriotic. That's family values. That's where I stand. You care about the family? Everybody in this country, everybody should have decent healthcare, decent education, and childcare. That's family values. So people don't have to worry. You have stronger communities, stronger farms, stronger population. You know, everybody's happy and healthy. And we don't have to keep on bombing other people. You know, when I see "Don't Tread on Me" flags in Vermont, I always tell the people, I say, you don't want somebody to tread on you, but you go tread on everybody else out there. They also have to tread on these flags. Get the fuck out of Syria. Get the fuck out of Yemen, out of Palestine, out of all these places. And then the people start to realize, well, yeah, I mean, they must. I said, yeah, you're patriotic for America. They're patriotic for their country. Get the hell out. You know? And you can tell when they're being sincere, and then when they say, "Oh no, but we're America," I say, "You're an imperialist.
America's
You're
just better for no
You're
reason.
the same as the British, as they were." Because you got to use the reverse
Right.
psychology on them. That's I talk
calling them imperialists is not gonna. It's not. They're not gonna be like, call me anything you will, but not an imperialist. That's obviously not gonna work. So you got it. Yeah.
You bring back the
like
spectrum and say, but the British, we
British,
we can say everything. What we knew was a bourgeois revolution. Doesn't matter. You use that logic.
Yeah, of course.
To destroy the illusions.
Right.
We can't throw capital at their heads and say, okay, get it now. It takes time.
Call me back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Read the first just skim through the first couple 400 pages and then get back to me. I don't remember how long Capital is, but
oh my God, 3 volumes. Here we go.
Volumes? Yeah, Anyway, just read a volume. Just read half a volume and get back to me in the morning. Yeah. And so you've had those moments where you've been able to see a change in people.
I have had multiple lifelong Republicans in their 70s and 80s who are farmers here who said it's the first time I ever voted for a communist.
Wow.
Yeah. But you know why?
I mean, maybe that is huge, but it's not like they're like, I withstood it. I withstood the temptation. I didn't vote for this communist. I didn't vote for that communist. I didn't vote for this but you're the one who turned me. So,
right.
Yes, I know, but yeah.
I think the real reason is because, I really believe in the fact that as activists and organizers, we have to go to the people. We have to deal with their reactionary bullshit. And I'm sorry, but no revolutionaries ever cried about emotional labor.
Yeah.
Fidel didn't cry about it. Che didn't cry about it. Lenin didn't cry about it. All these heroic people, all these people in the Abraham Lincoln, but they didn't cry about it. Say, oh my God, talking to these villagers, I can't handle it. No, suck it up, Buttercup. It's time to get to the action. It's time to get to organizing the working class. Yeah. So when I talk to these people out here, I treat them as equals. I'm not higher, even though I have studied at Ivy League schools. I have all these degrees. I speak in a plain language. I swear all the time. I pitch hay bales. I help them milk the cows. But you know what they realize very quickly? Wow, you wore the uniform. You went and fought. You're here with us. You're one of us. I say, yeah, I'm one of you. So you're going to vote for another millionaire or billionaire? You think they have your interests in mind? Fuck no. They wouldn't come and help you. So they said, yeah, I agree with you. You have to open their eyes slowly. You got to go to them. They'll say a homophobic thing. They'll say an Islamic phobic thing, this and that. And I have to say, look, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Cut the shit. These are people.
What do you say to them?
Eyes more and more.
What do you say?
So, for example, So, for example, they say something Islamophobic. And I say, man, my dad's Muslim. Half my family is all Muslim in Iran. So they're not. They are here. They work hard. Over there, they work hard. They just want peace. This is all bullshit. They're all implanted propaganda. Why? So you can be poor and vote for these people. And your sons can go die in these wars. And the guy's like, yeah, but they attacked us on 9/11. I said, yeah, but we bombed the hell out of them before that. What do you think? 9/11 happened happenstance? It just came to be. We armed them. Mujahideen, this and that. And you go back and you talk about Rambo 3. And they're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Okay. There we go. We start building on it and building on it. And slowly, after many conversations, they begin to realize, maybe I've been lied to. Yeah. Okay, what else have you been lied to about?
Right.
Right.
And I talk, especially the older people, I love them because they remember a time period when Soviet Union was an ally of the U.S. in World War II. Right?
Right.
Uncle Joe, Dr. Seuss did cartoons showing Uncle Joe, heroic Uncle Joe. He's going to, roast Adolf on a plate. And all of a sudden he goes from Uncle Joe to, oh my God, the evil Soviet Union. I said, what happened?
Right.
Propaganda, baby, big money, big industry, big military industrial complex. What do you think? They wanted to, cut out. We got the atomic bomb. We used it on Japan. We showed our might. Big dick measuring competition. All right. We're USA. We're here to stay. We're going to take over everybody now. So, of course. And, and I always try to tell them, we always did the aggression first. Always. But why do we do that? Why? It's your money anyway. It's your and my money. It's all going to these wars. And these other people are living luxury life. Country clubs, jets, yachts.
Right.
We're out here dealing with these animals in the middle of the winter. And we're like, God, can we get a break? Well, yeah, we can get a break if all this money is redistributed to us. If all of the war machine turns to a peace machine, that's patriotic. Right. So when you instill that, like Dennis Kucinich, he used to always say, that's patriotism. Peace is patriotic, right? So when you use that kind of language, people begin to change. You can have conversations. But ultimately, my biggest thing, even as an anti-fascist, I'm not going to go and talk to a neo-Nazi necessarily because I'm going to
Right.
fume. Of course, family history, boom, take the Kalashnikov. But like a Trump supporter here who's just lifelong Republican, I'll talk to them. I'll talk to them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Because
I
more
agree.
often than not, I'll find a lot of common ground.
Yeah.
And people who have been Trump supporters said they're voting for me and said that they really feel proud of that because I stood up to the corporations.
So crazy.
I stood up to. So I said, that's how we can win popular power.
Yeah.
You win it in areas when you go out to the people and you humble yourself. You don't go there and say, oh, look at me. You know, this education and you don't listen. You're fucking, you know, like this kind of language of the neoliberal elites.
That's so problematic. It's really problematic of you. Yeah.
Exactly. So it takes time. It takes effort. It's not easy. It's not, and I haven't converted the masses yet. There's no revolution imminent. But people, slowly by slowly, you build roots where you're at, and you're able to convince people and change people and transform them. That's what I think. That's my philosophy now.
So can you tell us, we talked about this before, and there have been some criticisms of you that are on a kind of personal level. Can you just talk to those?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about those. So one thing is the IWW. I was a branch secretary treasurer in Boston in 2016, and the branch split in two. So there were two factions over questions of patriarchy, misogyny, a whole host of issues that existed. So I was on the faction that was fighting against those people we considered to be patriotic and misogynistic. We were much more revolutionary than they were. And so eventually our branch decided that the money that we had now control of should be used for revolutionary purposes. So I gave over $600 to a comrade who was undergoing cancer treatment, which we had given money to prior to the split, gave money to reimburse somebody for, expenses prior to the split. And then the rest of the money they wanted to use to go help the struggle. As you know, I don't know if you realize the IWW members went to go fight in Rojava, like Michael Israel, who was martyred there. He was a wobbly as well, a fellow worker. So we went. I even took the IWW flag with me. We never did anything because while I was there, it turned out that the other faction took control, and then they were upset that the money was quote unquote misused. Later, the term embezzled was used as a political thing, but they said it was misused. They didn't want necessarily the money to go from a union in the US that has status to all of a sudden be used in some conflict where we could be terrorists next day. And if it was material support for terrorism, people are going to go ballistic. The union's going to get shut down. It's going to be a whole big thing, court cases, arrests, who knows what. So I said, okay, we won't publicize, that we have a flag here. We'll take pictures, IWW. And when I come back, we'll try to figure something out. So when I came back, I repaid the money. I repaid not only the portion that was used to go to Rojava, but even the portion that we gave to the comrade for his cancer treatment and for the reimbursements. We repaid all the money because the money was never stolen. It was used by a faction. The other faction disagreed. We paid it back. And the fact that it's been made a big deal of for me shows that there's some disingenuous actions going on from certain people. They're just being disingenuous because you think that in a community that talks about restorative justice, you pay back the money, you acknowledge that the mistakes were made. Okay, we didn't have the whole branch. The chapter was suspended. But okay, I paid back the money. And, I don't want any issues. I never wanted to harm any comrades. And we only tried to do good things. They kind of portray me as going and smoking cigars and drinking pina coladas on the beaches of Cuba. I wish. I went to Syria. It's not like the money was used for anything.
Pre-Castro Cuba, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the first issue. So that's been handled. That's been handled now for quite some time. So no issue there. The second thing, of course, is the fact that when I left to go to Greece and work with refugees and then go to Syria, an ex-comrade of mine got pregnant. And so that was a big issue. There was a lot of discussion. At first, they were supportive of going and fighting. And they said, yes, go. I'll take care of, I told her, I said, it's your body, it's your choice, ultimately, but I won't be there. I have this commitment already to the comrades over there. It's a pretty big commitment when you sign up and you say, I'm going to go and volunteer. And all these, parties that are illegal, by the way. PKK is a terrorist organization. So people are putting their lives on the line in Europe to organize comrades to go over. So I said, I'm going to go over. They later on got cold feet. I went over. My brother helped out. Family was involved with helping out with the baby. But later on, things fell apart. We couldn't handle the situation together. They made some accusations to me, which were untrue. And the courts have said that. And right now, we're just going to court over parentage, child support, and custody. But the main thing for me is that, this is our daughter. I don't say anything negative about her mother. Of course not, because I'm not like that, And of course, I wish that there were not negative things, kind of slanderous things and defamatory things said about me. But even with that happening, I hope that this can be solved through the courts. I hope I can have a relationship with my daughter. I'm raising my son now, who's 18 months almost, and another baby on the way here. And I'd love to have my daughter in my life and to be able to enjoy her and let her enjoy the farm and to have some level of relationship with her, even though I know that her mom, my former comrade, really despises me for having gone and quote unquote abandoned her. But everything will be solved. That's the point. It takes time. Relationships have issues. All families don't survive, So people are like, what's communist values with a family? We try. If we can use the community can hopefully have some restorative justice. If not, you have to go to the courts. And that's it. And we let the state decide. And then hopefully through, building processes of, trust through whatever mediation will happen with the courts or, a child support and things like that. Maybe over the few years in the future, there can be some sort of restorative justice between the two of us. But for now, I don't say anything negative. It's just falling out in the relationship, and I hope that everything goes well going forward.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds and this is not a question of like, oh, I don't want to have the kid. You do. You want to have the kid, fine, but I'm not going to pay anything.
No. In fact, I want to pay. They don't want me to be in the child's life, which for me is a trouble because I said, but it's our kid. Like I should be at least have some visitation rights.
Yeah.
They wanted me to give up my parental rights, and then the state of Massachusetts said you can't do that. You can't just give up your parental rights. So I said, I want to be involved in the child's life. They don't want me to be involved, so the court will arbitrate and say, okay, that either visit, like supervised visitation, and then hopefully with trust building mechanisms. Hopefully in a few years down the road, it can be a lot smoother.
Right.
But, sometimes, situations with kids and families are difficult.
Yeah.
They're sometimes very difficult. They can be toxic. The courts get involved. Police get involved. And it's just a whole bunch of dynamics that really can be tough on a family. So I try to take it one stride at a time. Try to be good. I didn't have a lawyer before. Now I have a lawyer who's representing me. But, you need that. I didn't realize how complicated the criminal justice system is. But my gosh, without a lawyer, I had no clue what all these different, loopholes were and this and that. And I said, oh, my gosh, I need a lawyer. That's it.
Right. So people are, of course, getting mad about my asking you these questions. I could have not asked you these questions, and then people would have seen you on the show and been like, oh, he seems cool, but there's all this bullshit. Go ask this person. I'm just speaking to people on both a moral and strategic level. Like, when these things are in the air and you don't address them, it doesn't actually work. And
they don't go away necessarily.
They don't go away. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's also like, I'm not asking him like what his sexual orientation is. So people can get over it, guys. Okay.
I'm queer. Woo!
So there you go. See, this is all set up for me to get to that question. Yeah. There are two different debates. One is whether it's fair game at all, and then whether it's fair game, and then whether it's smart game. Because there's the whole question. You could argue that stuff is irrelevant, but it has been made into a thing. So I think it's in everyone's best interest to address it. Like,
And to be honest with you, when you speak to working class people, like I live in a rural area, it's all farms, a lot of rural poverty, opioid crisis, a lot of broken families, suicides, drug abuse. So when people realize that I'm only human, even with all my education, even with all my experience, even having been an officer in the U.S. Army, they realize all of my brokenness too. Of course, we're only human. Relationships, they love that. We get to speak on a human to human level, right? They get to say, tell me your issues. And they say, I've heard about your issues. And we get to talk. And people like that. People don't want fake politicians, right? People don't want fake people who represent them. I have real issues. Everybody has real issues out there.
Well, I don't, but almost everyone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm an exception. It's weird. People don't really understand, but somehow, yeah.
But I think it's okay to be open and honest about that, because I have nothing to hide. Comrades have known me for decade plus, in the movement. And, I've just tried to be principled. Sometimes we fall down, but we get up again and we keep moving. And we, ask for forgiveness. We try to reconcile, and we just move along.
Right. Someone in the chat says, I don't get why Shahid's personal life was an issue either. The thing is that, like, it's not like totally black. These things aren't totally personal and private. There obviously are overlaps in them. So if someone is like Shahid did not, I haven't seen any evidence of any Me Too stuff. But had he done Me Too stuff, that's relevant. So that's why these things are relevant. So just to the people in the chat, it's like, it's not like there's always these perfectly discrete things. And so I just want to hold on. I have to shut off the heat. Give me 1 minute.
Sure, of course.
Jack, ask him a question, or I'll ask another question because I always have more. I just literally, it's going to take me 30 seconds.
Sure. Go ahead and ask.
Okay, let me take out. Go. Okay, go.
Yeah, we can hold it down. So what else is going on? You know, what else are you doing these days? Seen any movies or anything?
Not really. I'm taking care of the goats, the sheep. We have 9 baby goats, so I'm taking care of them. Little Nigerian dwarf goats, so they are growing up and getting all big. We're actually expanding our farm. We have about 150 acres. We're getting an additional 150
Holy
acres.
shit, that's a lot of goats. That is really a lot of goats you got there.
We have like almost 20 goats. We have sheep. We have chickens.
Wow.
Almost 50 chickens. So, oh yeah.
Wow.
You know,
geez, that's really farm life. Oh my god.
It's farm life. Oh yeah. And
you guys, that's goat.
Yeah, that is the goat. You're the goat.
I always forget what that means, but now I remember. But whenever I see it I'm like, what? Oh, right, graceful on time. Yeah. Anyway, well, do you want to say hi to our next guest? You guys can have like a little 5-minute like China, whatever.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah. All right. So let's bring on this guy who's also spent time in China. That's the theme of the show. No, I'm just kidding. But I think you guys probably have a little similar perspectives. Danny Haiphong from the Black Agenda Report. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey there.
Hey, thanks
for
for having
coming
me, guys. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So
Thank
Christopher is running for office and he's just leaving, but I thought you guys would have some interesting back and forth.
No, I was actually fascinated, Chris, by your experience in Syria, because I know some other folks have done that and came to different conclusions. So I'm I was actually very happy to hear your analysis and what you're doing. So good to meet you.
Absolutely. Actually, we met in passing. I was at the UNAC conference in February in New York. When you were there.
Yeah. Right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic.
Crushed the city. Yeah.
I know. The last good gathering of comrades. So
Exactly.
I was there, and actually, a lot of your work has been so important on China. Of course, I lived in China for 2 years. I have a master's in Marxist philosophy from a Chinese university. And China has a very, special place in my heart. So when I see all of this anti-China hysteria and, China's the new imperial power, I said, you people don't even know Chinese history. China could have dominated in the 16th century, Ming Dynasty. They could have taken over everything, but they didn't. Actually, the imperial court took everybody back, said, no, we're not going to expand, right? And so people don't realize that the Chinese, idea of leadership in the world has never been one of empire. It's always been one of, sort of a multipolar system, always referring to, for example, even in historical texts, the Romans were referred to as Da Qing. They had very great respect for Roman, for the Byzantines. They had conflict.
What does that word mean?
Da Qing is like basically the big Qing. So like they had like this idea that they also were somehow equal to them. Even though they still thought themselves as somehow, an enormously important civilization, the Middle Kingdom. But they had enormous respect for all of the advancements going on around the world, and they had no quest to go and dominate them. There was mutual transactions along the Silk Road, and that's why the One Belt One Road initiative is so important. It's not about empire and all these crazy people who are fear mongering and really advocating for war. That's what they're saying, but it's not. It's about mutual cooperation of the peoples. And I went to Xinjiang. I spent a month there in the summer of 2015. And of course, I have Muslim family members, and I went and I didn't see any camps. I went to the mosques. People were praying. People, of course, there was a police presence, but also I was there when Kunming attacked. I was there when there were a lot of terrorist attacks. People were afraid. I had a beard in China. People were afraid. People sometimes would say that maybe I'm from Xinjiang. And I'd say, oh, no, I'm US, but I'm Greek and Iranian. They say, oh, no problem, But, people were worried. They were fearful. And so when you see all this fear mongering that somehow, there's like these camps and concentration camps, I don't buy it. And even some journalists have now said that I'm a genocide denier. That's not true. You can't just throw around those words like that. These are very powerful things, And for me, I think that the work that you're doing, Danny, is so important. And I really want to commend you on that. And it's really important to uplift these voices because we might find ourselves in another hot war pretty soon. And I, for one, will not support any war against China at all, period. End of story. And I've been speaking out against it here on the ground because it won't be one that we won. We both have nuclear weapons, you know,
Right.
and the Chinese people will defend themselves. They lived under
Mhm.
colonialism. They lived under all of these, you know, concessions where all of these different European countries tore them apart. So we
Mhm.
cannot allow that to happen again. We must fight for a world of internationalism, mutual solidarity, and respect and fraternity amongst the peoples.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Christopher. And all your info is in there in the description, and I'm sure people are gonna be intrigued to find out more about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
best of luck. Yeah.
Thanks,
Nice to meet
Chris.
you. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Have a good one.
Yasu.
Yasu. Yasu.
Okay. Wow. Alrighty. This show has like been on fire. Am I right?
Yeah. This is
Am I
great.
right or am I right? Yeah, this is
I
great,
mean,
right?
this is just it's a breakneck pace is what I would call it. It's just a breakneck pace.
Great. Breakneck pace. Yeah. BNP. Is that
Mhm.
that's what we call it. So Danny,
Hey.
thank you so much for coming onto the show.
course.
Tell us what you're working on.
Well, there's a lot going on, as you all know. But one of the efforts and campaigns that I've been putting a lot of work into since July has been the No Cold War campaign. We've held several webinars and online events since July. We formulated a statement um, basically stating that a new Cold War against China is against the interests of humanity at large, right? We're
Mhm.
at this juncture in the world where the United States is escalating tensions with China at a time where climate change, this global pandemic, and economic crisis, poverty, racism, war, all of these issues are at the forefront of what the majority of humanity is really interested in tackling. And this escalation with China only brings the world to the precipice of places that most people do not want to be. So we came together, activists, scholars from the UK, from the US, from China, to really try to diminish this anti-China sentiment, this real huge drive toward a new Cold War with China that the entire US political establishment with Trump at the head, but it really is a bipartisan consensus in terms of escalating militarily in the Asia Pacific, in terms of really painting China as this red menace, right? This great power which is looking to undermine US hegemony and basically is being blamed as well for the pandemic, despite its brilliant and very successful pandemic response. So
Yeah.
there's so many dangerous components to this new Cold War, and we have held several events. We had an inaugural event July 25th. We have had another one, a peace forum on September, in late September, where we had organizations like Black Alliance for Peace. We had Code Pink attend that. And most recently, we had a dialogue between Jeffrey Sachs, who's co-author of the great report on the effect of sanctions in Venezuela for the Center for Economic and Policy Research. And he was in dialogue with Zhang Weiwei, who is a professor at Fudan University in China and really the foremost scholar on how to understand China in the West. So he does a lot of work in terms of bringing sort of what's going on in China and how China views issues that the U.S. seems to always be talking about: human rights, China's role in the world, its governance system, etc., to Western audiences. And he was also an interpreter for Deng Xiaoping. So we are now moving forward with an event on November 14th, which people can register for now. You can find us at www.nocoldwar.org. And it's an event on uniting against racism in the new Cold War. I'll be speaking at it. Chow Collective, which is an activist group made up of people from the Chinese diaspora, will be chairing. And we'll have people like David West, former NBA All-Star, as well as now activist, and other folks like Nick Estes of the Red Nation, Jingjing Li from CGTN. We'll also have Chris Metalko of the South African Communist Party. We're really trying to bring together forces all over the world to demand an end to the new Cold War and to fight against many of its aspects, like the racism that really undergirds a lot of the way that the U.S., the political establishment, and majorities of people now who see China as some sort of threat, who see China in a negative light, and how racism really undergirds all of that.
All right.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the biggest myths you'd like to that you've seen perpetuated about this issue?
Right. Well, there's so many.
Yeah, where
I
to
mean,
start?
I think we can start with the pandemic, right? I think that the Trump administration, Donald Trump himself, Mike Pompeo, and basically his whole administration has spread this ruthless lie that, and the dangerous conspiracy theory that COVID-19 somehow sprung out of a
Right.
lab in Wuhan, and that China intentionally, so it becomes so insidious where now the narrative is China intentionally brought the virus to the United States and basically caused this huge catastrophe. I mean, there is no bigger example of deflecting and blaming China for the ills that the United States has really brought it upon itself, at least the government and the power structure. And so
When they invented it in their lab.
Exactly. Well, there are just so many inconsistencies, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the major point about the pandemic is that by blaming China, by calling the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the China virus, the Wuhan virus, what it does is it stirs up all of the racism, which is over a century long when it comes to the U.S.'s relationship with China. It was only in the late 19th century when the United States was excluding and banning and barring Chinese migrants, treating Chinese migrants as they were treating, let's say, black laborers in this country, seeking them out to lynch them, to deport them. It was only 100 years ago, a little over, that was occurring. And so, this history of racism has come back up during the pandemic. And what the real unfortunate thing about this is that while China is being blamed for the pandemic and for not being so-called transparent enough, despite in January telling the whole world that this virus was dangerous and provided its genome to the World Health Organization, we can't learn from the response that they
Right.
employed, which saved hundreds, thousands, if not millions of people in China. People don't understand that China is 1.4 billion people, and to be able to keep the death count below 5,000, to be able to mobilize testing on a mass basis, to be able to really tailor responses based on local conditions, and in the way that the whole government mobilized to build temporary hospitals, to organize volunteers to ensure people's needs were met. That really was the gold standard, especially at a time in January, February, when this was a new virus. Nobody really knew what this was. And
Mhm.
China has been blamed for this. China has been blamed for the 200,000 people that have died here, despite the fact that it really was the Trump administration and the entire political establishment that wasn't responding. I mean, people say it's all about Trump and the coronavirus failure, but I live in New York City, and I know that Democratic governors also had a big role to play in neglecting how
Mhm.
serious this was, waiting and waiting, not looking thousands of miles to the east and
Uh,
saying, what is China doing?
right. I don't know. Have you seen Governor Cuomo made a really good poster about Governor Cuomo's response where he showed in graphic form how he flattened the curve, he and his
Yeah.
daughters and
His daughters and her
very
boyfriend.
very literal.
He has a book
representation,
now too, I think,
yeah. Oh,
right?
really?
Wow, how nice.
About leadership during the
Wow.
COVID, right? Despite sending older folks to nursing homes,
Right.
And giving them liability,
COVID-19.
and giving the nursing homes like immunity from liability,
Right.
like
Terrible.
so that they could kill people basically with impunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So the pandemic is one part, and then I think the biggest myth is, I think the biggest overall myth is that China is somehow a threat to the workers in the United States. There is this whole narrative that's been constructed around China, and this dates way back before this new Cold War. It dates even back to the 90s when people like Joe Biden were talking about China as being this. They were doing it with Japan too in the 80s, and Biden was part of that too, talking about how Japan and China, they're bringing conditions down for workers. It's all their fault. It's all their fault. When really the most favored nation status that China negotiated with the United States has really benefited the United States way more than China. Massive profits came out of China, still do to this day. It's still a really uneven relationship. It's just that China's social system has been able to adjust and has been able to use what it could learn from the US, but not just the US, because I think this US centric discussion about China and its economic relationship with the world is unhelpful sometimes, but also with Japan and Europe, a lot of lessons were learned, and then China employed the technology, the know-how, the economic infrastructure that it was able to develop through research on how the US and Europe and Japan did things, and then employed it for its own purposes to be able to raise its economic standard of living and to be able to now be a competitor on the world stage. So that has nothing to do with China. The way that US corporations have behaved, they have been the ones who saw China as a huge pool of surplus, low-wage labor. And China said, you can exploit this labor, but you're going to have to understand that we're going to do everything we can to build up our country, to develop an economy that is advanced, that can meet people's needs over the medium and long term. And that's exactly what's happened. We've seen how China is now in purchasing power parity terms, the largest economy in the world, second largest in GDP terms. And with this economic crisis, in 5 to 10 years, it'll likely be the largest economy. And it's doing so on the basis of actually improving people's lives. Like, people's lives in China have improved. It's unquestionable now. I went there for 2 weeks and saw it, but the numbers don't lie. Extreme poverty will be eliminated this year. The government will move towards relative poverty, will raise the per capita income of the entire population, and we will see this trend of living standards there elevating. And in order for the United States to justify the declining living standards here, they're going to continue, the government here, both parties are going to continue to blame China for that, that outcome, when in fact, it really falls at the feet of U.S. corporations and banks.
So I'm going to stay here. I just have to change the lighting because it's like burning my face because I had the heat on before. So I'm going to stay here. You're just not going to see me. But tell us how you got interested in this issue in the first place, and also what you saw when you were in China, how long you were there, what you did when you were there.
Sure thing. So so I got interested in this issue. I mean, I've been a socialist, a communist, similar to Chris, since 2010, 2011. And I'm Vietnamese myself, and so I really when I started to get into activism here in the United States, a lot of it first was around Occupy Wall Street, the struggle against racism, Trayvon Martin, and that issue came up not too long after I started to even be interested in politics. I also come from a working class background, experienced the racism in this country that is very real when it comes to Asian Americans. It didn't just begin. I mean, it is rough now.
No, it's just now being like heightened a lot.
Exactly.
But
it is heightened, and it is worse for sure. I mean, with the thousands of attacks on Asian Americans, Chinese Americans, etc. But growing up, I experienced that all throughout. The language of war was really important for me. I had a dad who actually went to Vietnam, was drafted. And and my mother and my family, I really got to see how Vietnamese people, Asian Americans in general, were treated. And the language of war is so pertinent, right? The language of, let's say, gook, chink, all of that, those all were formulated during very key points of wars. Gook began during the U.S. invasion of the Philippines in the late 19th, early 20th century. And onward and onward, right? This language of war to justify the massive pillage and destruction of places like the Philippines, of Vietnam, of Korea, and also China. China has been a target of the United States for a very long time. And so I became really interested in China when I started to really learn the history of anti-racist struggle in the United States. The deep solidarity of, let's say, the Black Liberation Movement with peoples of East Asia, with Vietnam, with China, with Korea. And I really wanted to learn more about what was going on in that part of the world, because it seemed like the United States had problems with every country, has problems with Vietnam, has problems with the DPRK, has problems with China. And so, I, like many people, was skeptical, right? I was skeptical of socialism. And it wasn't until I started reading the works of, the socialist forefathers of that region, whether it's Mao or Ho Chi Minh. But it really didn't come about until, I wrote about China in some respects, but I didn't really start studying modern China until the Obama administration began its pivot to Asia, because I think not a lot of people understand how big of a shift that was in military policy, when after over a decade, the United States had focused primarily on destroying the Middle East, on building up its forces in Africa, on undermining revolutionary movements in Latin America. Now it was moving to Asia because China's economically rising, and the United States wanted to forward a policy of containment. And so when the Obama administration did that, after the destruction of Libya, which was hugely very influential on me, just to see an African
great
country be
success.
bombed by a Black president. Yes, the most prosperous African country in the world be bombed by a Black president. I began studying modern China, and really wanted to see it for myself. And I never thought I would make it there, because it's really expensive to get out there. And I never thought I would even have enough money to do that. But I was able to, right before the pandemic, go on a delegation to China, and I was there for 2.5 weeks in 2019, from mid-December to from late December to early mid-January. And I traveled with the U.S.-China Solidarity Network, which is organized by another speaker of the November 14th event, Soo-Hin Lee. And, we went from Beijing, and then we went to the west to Xinjiang as well, to what's considered the capital, Urumqi. And we spent time, tourism, because it's hard to get Americans to go to China without tourism. But we also had meetings. We had meetings with the Beijing Friendship Association. Me and a few friends went to the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences and interviewed with an academic there. And, we kind of got a lay of the land on what has been going on. And what's so interesting about China to me is you really do see the progress, because most things in China are new, because actually it really didn't start to industrialize. China was a very poor country all the way up until the 1990s, really. And so almost all of the infrastructure is 10, 20, maybe tops 30 years old in most of the cities. You really do see the investment in the public and public infrastructure, which is quite stark when you think about how the U.S. is pulling back on all of that. So if you go to China, we went on 2 high-speed rails. China leads the world in high-speed rail production. You see the renewable energy production, and I know that you all have done a lot of work around climate change and interviewing people like Michael Moore. Well, when I was in China, the renewable energy production is everywhere. I mean, China is not just an export. It's not just people think that China just exports everything. It's the factory of the world. That's where no, it's in China. The renewable energy is everywhere. The solar energy. I always joke with people. I'm like, well, you go, you would think Beijing, Xi'an, some of these cities which are larger than New York City, more dense even than New York City in many respects. And you think about just the noise that you hear when you see that more than half of all vehicles in some of these cities are electric, you really don't hear the streets. So it's such a contrast then with like New York City or some of the bigger cities here in the US, where everything's diesel and everything's gas. And so it's incredible just at that level. But I think what really struck me about China was that despite all of the differences, right? China has 50 plus ethnic groups in the country. It really, most people call it a civilization now. They don't call it a country, because It's so big, and there's nations within nations within nations, but yet there is this central plan that's enacted that really is to the benefit of the majority of people. And you see and you feel the support that people have for the government, especially in this time where the US is so hostile towards China, that there is first a fear of the United States. A lot of people are now looking at the United States as just this basket case. It's chaotic, it's violent, it doesn't want to be friends, right? So but it wants to change our system, and that's the prevailing belief. But a lot of people have deep admiration of the government because most people that we met could feel the differences between what it was like growing up in China, even in the 1980s, 1970s, to growing up today, the opportunities that are available, the opportunities to make money at all, to have access to the technology that has happened so rapidly. In the 1970s, people didn't have telephones, they didn't have radios. Many people in China were, riding horse, carriages, and getting around on foot and walking 10, 20, 30 miles to get places. Now there's modern infrastructure, and it's modern infrastructure that is not inaccessible to people. So that was very interesting to see. And I think for me, the key part was seeing how the environment, the preservation of the environment, that's one of the things that I think people think China is just way wrong on, right? But when you go to cities like Beijing, you talk to people, you go to Xi'an, go to Urumqi, and the policy is the same. It's, we're going to tackle this pollution problem that became a problem because we needed to industrialize, and we're going to continue to tackle it. And there are deep and enforceable policies that are just embedded in daily life. Like in Beijing, for example, you cannot purchase a diesel vehicle anymore. So if you have one, you can use it until it dies. But now there's just a straight ban on diesel vehicles, and a hefty punishment if you try to bring one, into your residence there. In Shanghai, which is much more capital laden even than Beijing, if you buy a diesel vehicle, you have to pay twice as much to get it, in order to get one. Meaning you have to buy the car, and you have to also buy a certificate.
Wow.
Saying it's almost like a stamp of disapproval. You have to buy a certificate that costs as much as the car. So you could be, spending upwards of, many tens of thousands of RMB to get your vehicle. So there are these deep policies that are making a big difference. And I think that although China understands their problems, economic inequality is a problem, poverty is still a problem, in trying to figure out how to navigate in a world that is still very much based on this unmitigated capitalist development everywhere. It's a very tricky terrain, and even just the region is tricky, right? Relations with Japan, relations within China itself. The Taiwan issue is now a really difficult issue because of the way that the U.S. is trying to stoke separatism and is sending weapons, millions of dollars of weapons. So there's so many very sensitive topics and issues that are just very difficult to navigate. And to see a whole country that's a large 1/7, 1/8 of the entire planet try to tackle all of this was just very impressive. And so it really motivated me to come back here and try to strengthen this peace movement in a way that can make some form of difference over this very troubling political trajectory that the U.S. is on in relation to China, but the world at large.
So Samuel Wamble writes, such a great show. Thanks, Katie and Jack. And I'm sure he means Danny too. And then, oh, wow, look at this. Hold on, guys. Then we'll get some questions. But where's the thing I just saw? Schlaberdaskin, U.S. citizens need more of this information. Thank you for that very generous donation. Wow, look at that. And a lot of people, of course, are asking, well, what does this guy have to say that's critical about China? So here's your chance.
Well, my principle, and it just doesn't apply to China, but it applies to all countries that are under fire from imperialism and from the United States, especially, is that I feel like it's our job here within, I guess the cliche is the belly of the beast, but in real terms, we are living in the epicenter of empire, of militarism, and so it really is our job to forward a position that strengthens the movement for peace and doesn't fall into, in any form or any shape or any way, the talking points of what is really our adversary, our own government, our own, um, our own system. And so, my understanding of China is that a lot of criticism happens. You can go there and talk to people, and there's criticisms everywhere. Criticisms of the government, there are issues, local administration. We can go, there are many problems that China is trying to resolve, and that people, real people, ordinary people, are very involved in. Right? China has there are a lot of mass organizations, there are women's organizations, local organizations, even a lot of people have a lot of issues with the Communist Party of China, but the Communist Party of China has deep roots with ordinary people in China. It's a party of over 90 million people in a country of just over a billion. So if you count just the members of the party and relationships to members of the party, you have almost half of the country with a deep relationship to the Communist Party of China. So my position on, what about criticisms, is that there are issues. There's the economic inequality, the income inequality is always at the top of the agenda for the government. This is a growing problem. Figuring out how to reduce the impact of climate change and the impact of industrialization on the environment. That's a problem that also is being addressed. These are real issues, but it's not my job to criticize the government in a way that helps the United States. And I think a lot of the times when that question is asked, it's usually on issues like Hong Kong or Xinjiang, where there is this coordinated campaign among organizations, think tanks, the corporate media, and the military industrial complex, which funds all of them, to demonize and smear China in an unfounded way, much of the time, if not 100% of the time, on issues that just build up this narrative of China being some sort of red menace, of China being this, genocide obsessed, evil force, right? And I think that is unhelpful. So while China has many issues that it is tackling, we should be very cautious and also take the position that self-determination is first and foremost the principle we need to be forwarding. So China has the right to determine its own destiny. The people of China have the right to determine their own destiny. And right now, the people of China are choosing the Communist Party of China to be the vehicle for that, and are choosing the current trajectory that the country is on to, determine the destiny of the people there. So, that's basically how I answer that question, because there's so many components to it. And usually, it gets more specific around, what do you have to say about Uyghurs in concentration camps? Or what do you have to say about Hong Kong pro-democracy? And usually it's the same thing, right? There are just so many heavy forces like the NED, like the ASPI, both of which are funded by the CIA, the State Department, the military industrial complex. There are so many forces looking to drive these narratives home, so we all become foot soldiers in the US's larger containment strategy and a militaristic approach to dealing with China's rise in the world.
Yeah. Well, Jack, I know you have to go soon. I don't know how much time. Yeah. I just wanted to, before you left, I just wanted to talk to you about, and Danny, of course, you can participate in this too. And then we can take some questions or wrap up, because it's late. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But Obama said this weekend, right, Biden's not a socialist. He was my vice president.
At this point, I'm like, you all won. You know what I mean? Like, how deep do you have to stick the knife and over again?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even see the elector. He's not winning the Floridian Cubans. You know what I mean?
That's
It's
the thing.
like
Cuba
there's
is
no
not
electoral.
right.
Yeah.
So what's the? Yeah, I mean, you could
There's
argue,
no benefit
right?
other than just to like be shitty to young people who care about voting.
Yeah, because it's like the Cubans are, I tweeted this earlier today. It's like they have an amazing opportunity. Biden had this gift wrapped thing where once Trump had COVID, he could have just like done all the things that even mainstream Dems kind of pretend to believe in, maybe, which is like that corporate welfare is bad. And that, like, you talk about socialism and socialized medicine, but healthcare is a right, which what Biden pretends to believe, even though he also says he's really into private
Well, it's
insurance.
a right, but rights only apply to, like, they still leave out 3 million people. You know, that's how rights work.
Right. But like, pause the deeper conversation on Hong Kong, because Jack has 5 minutes, so that we're not going to get to the deeper conversation on Hong Kong right now. No, it's not that fun. I'm just like, but in fact, let me go into full screen so I'm not distracted. I mean, it is incredible that imagine what a game changer this moment could have provided. Like, you literally could have said, Mr. President, you are alive right now thanks to the socialized medicine that you're attacking us Democrats for fighting for. And instead, he's just like, we're not socialists. Like, no pushing back at all on the framing of Trump, and no using the opportunity to expose the corporate welfare that he's living off of, like the bloated parasite that he is.
Right.
I mean, it's
we're
just
also
incredible.
We're going to see a lot of the stuff, where Biden has been sort of mirroring Trump's rhetoric about like Antifa and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That I think will continue post-election. You know what I mean? Like, that is, he is trying to be a moderate. And, I thought, Katie, in your interview with David Serrata, I thought was really interesting what he said, which is that, Biden as a politician has always rhetorically framed himself against the left. Like, that's just really his instinct, if nothing else. Like, even if it's like not ideologically where his gut is, that's just like how he has operated as a politician. It's like, tacking to the center and hitting at the left and saying, I'm not like the rest of the Democrats, I'm a reasonable person or whatever. You know what I mean? And so, I think that I think that he's probably right, that we're going to continue to see that that device continue to be used by Biden, and that strategy to continue to be used by Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really disturbing.
For sure. I mean, it keeps Trump in the race. I mean, that's the thing, is that doing this just continues to keep Trump in it. I mean, because if he were to say, well, healthcare is a human right, and look at how you have used socialized medicine for your own benefit, and we're going to make sure everyone has that, he would probably win in a landslide, but we don't know. As we think he's going to win, but we still don't 100% know.
Well, this guy can always pull some weird shit out. Trump always pulls out some weird shit here and there. It does seem likely that Biden will win, and that's where I'm. He is definitely. You're absolutely right. He's keeping Trump in the race. I'm like shifting in my mindset because it feels so likely that Biden's going to win. Just to like, okay, so what does this presidency look like? If this is the posture with the press and with the left and everything, like, what is this presidency going to look like? And there's a lot of worrisome shit already. We've got the social media platforms outright, banning specific articles that he doesn't like, and we have this sort of reflexive anti-left posture just as a default.
Yeah. And under the guise of healing, and they're going to pretend everything that they do is going to be for unity and healing.
Right.
It's not going to be
about to start getting yelled at by people about how we're helping the GOP by complaining about Biden.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, look, I feel like we should get paid money just for not running out to swing states and telling them to sit it out or vote for Trump. So honestly,
look,
you can't yell at
everyone,
for anything.
the left has been actually very good this election about like really towing the line for the most part. Like, there's really only a couple assholes like me who were like, I'm still not voting Biden. Right. Everyone else is being pretty good for the most part. You know?
Yeah. What's your take on that, Danny? Do you have an official position?
In terms of voting for Biden,
Yeah.
or like, well, I'm not voting for Biden, so I'm one
Yeah.
of those assholes for
But
sure.
you live in New York,
You live
right?
in New
Yeah,
York.
so
And
it
I'm a
doesn't
California person as well, so it's
exactly.
like
It doesn't make too much of a difference. But
Yeah,
my
you're
official
mid-level
position,
asshole.
I just can't. I mean, I can't hold my
I'm
nose
not
for
doing
Joe
it.
Biden.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold my nose for Hillary Clinton. I can't hold my nose for Joe
Yeah.
Biden because everything just gets worse and worse and worse, right? The approach, everything, and even if Trump is the gold standard for what the right wing is supposed to look like, the far right, Biden goes so close to Trump all of the time. I mean, we've
Yes,
seen
on
it in the
almost every
debates.
issue.
It just
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah. Oh, it really feels like it doesn't make a difference. And of course, we'll have a lot of the liberals say, oh, of course it makes a huge difference.
Right.
But we're going to see a very similar pattern because of the systemic problems that exist in this country just continue to develop and fester until real progressive forces become the motive force of history in this country. But until then, we're on the great race to the bottom, baby.
Right. I don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, I feel very, very, very balanced. Like my chakras are really good because it's like we definitely have no power to influence anything now. We can't withhold our votes. Like maybe we could have if we had planned way, 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 way earlier. Also, like he's gonna suck. So it's almost like this inner peace of absolute hopelessness.
Yeah. The next thing you have to look forward to is you're like, well, maybe the liberals will notice when the like child like internment camps are still open when Tom Cotton is running, but probably not.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, maybe they'll notice then that somehow the like, you know, the internment camps didn't get shut down. I really do have to run, but I just want to say one final thing in response to somebody in the chat. And this is just a general statement, you know, because I sometimes get from listeners to this show, people say I say like too much, and it is a verbal tick. I'm never, ever, ever going to stop.
Good.
That's what I want to say to the people in the chat who complain about me saying like too much or me laughing or
they
something.
They can like fuck themselves.
I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to stop. It's just ingrained in me. Even if it's annoying, it's just not something that can stop. So that's just a blanket statement from now on. From now on, I'm never, ever, ever going to stop doing it.
Well,
anyway, I really do have to run. It was really nice to meet you, Danny. And this is a really great episode, Katie. And I'll see you all next week.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, Jack.
All right. See you later.
Danny, you want to take any final questions or any final?
I can stick around. Yeah. However long you want to go.
Yeah. All right. So anyone have any more questions for Danny? I'm very. Do you speak any Chinese?
No, I need
not
to
like an
now,
easy
though.
language to pick up. Yeah.
No, it's not. Definitely need to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I know Margaret. I mean, it's interesting because you're like, oh, I wouldn't vote. I couldn't bring myself to vote for. I can't hold my nose. I feel like people often don't like Chris Hedges was on, and he was saying that he wasn't going to vote for Biden. He spoke at this huge thing, you know, the People's what was it, People's Party, but he also says that he hopes that thank you, Johnny V. Love your show, Katie. Thank you very much. He also says that he hopes that Trump loses. So he thinks that Trump is like there are various different positions. I'm still trying to put together a show where there's like a spectrum. But there's like Trump is worse than Biden, so I hope he loses, but I can't personally vote for Biden. But Chris Hedges, I think, is registered in New York, so it doesn't matter. Then there's like Trump is worse than Biden, and we need that because it has to accelerate stuff. Then there's the like, well, if we don't stop it now, it's just going to keep going worse. It keeps going more towards the right more and more. I do think that that's a good argument, except it's like we actually have to come up with it. I don't know. What's your take on this? Like, yeah.
I think there's truth, I think, in all of the different arguments that can be made about Trump losing or Trump winning or Biden winning. I think that you can make arguments regardless, but I don't think any of the arguments are so strong that it's going to make a significant difference on the material, conditions that exist right now and what will exist during the administrations of either person. So for me, I guess my 2 cents is that regardless of who wins, and for me, I don't have any, like, for Trump winning, we learned throughout the last 4 years. That Trump winning does not mean that there's going to be some huge left resurgence, and
No.
the Mick resistance has been horrific, and
Right,
has
the
honestly
worst.
done much more harm than good. The Russiagate, all of that just makes the Trump phenomenon just even that much more insidious and vile, let alone all of the things that he is associated with and represents. But so I have no dog in that fight. If Biden wins, and we have another set of challenges, right? We have the fact that a lot of Democrats will just probably say, great, this is it. That's good. We did what was needed. And now, back to normal, right? And that's why I wrote about American Exceptional. That's why we at Black Agenda Report talk about just the Democrats all the time, because it's that mentality, which does take a lot of the most progressive constituencies, labor, Black America, it into this graveyard of social movements, and it makes it so we constantly have to pull people further left as the corporate Democrats take these constituencies captive and really immobilize them, and make it so we don't have, exactly as you said before, we don't have the power, because these forces have been captured and allowed to think that, the Democrats are the lesser of two evils, and when they're in office, we can swallow and stomach everything that they have to offer, even if it's worse than what came before, right? And I think that's troublesome, because it gives the political establishment and the ruling class at large just so much leeway to roll out their agenda free of any challenge, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, someone wrote in the chat that the neoliberal, neo-fascism things are the same. I think there are differences, honestly, but I think a lot of the things are like not issues of predictability. There's certain things that are more predictable in a weird way with Biden, but like I feel like there's certain things where Biden almost definitely will do something, but there's a chance that Trump could do it and go like insane around it.
Right.
Like I feel like Trump could blow up a country, and Biden is going to be like hawkish as he always is. Trump could be like really not engage in a lot, but then do something ridiculous like the Soleimani thing, which I'm obviously invested in personally. But besides,
it's very complex. I mean, this is what, as a communist or socialist, like, things are dialectical. Two things are true at the same time, always, right? So there are differences between Trump and Biden, especially ideologically, but policy wise, there are differences. It's just that there's so many other forces at play, which ensure that regardless of who it is, you're going to get a set of policies, austerity, endless war. You're going to get that regardless. It's really a matter of how it's measured, how it's employed, and at what level can the most disastrous outcomes be rolled out, based on much more than just Trump or Biden being in office, right? There's how are people mobilized? What is the flavor, right? That's why anti-China sentiment is so dangerous, because
it's bipartisan.
Yeah, because it's bipartisan, and the public, more than half of the United States now, believes China is the enemy of their enemy. They believe that they have negative opinions on China, and that allows for the military-industrial complex, who doesn't care if Trump or Biden's in office. They're going to try to forward this very dangerous policy of containment and aggression, which could lead to a nuclear war at any given moment. And that, I think, just tells us that we have so many things to consider when it comes to presidents, but we also have to know that there are differences. There are differences in how Biden approaches politics, how Biden administration approaches policy, and how Trump in his administration approaches policy. And at times, things, when it comes to Trump on certain foreign policy questions, better than Biden. When it comes to certain things on economics, Biden's better than Trump. But it's the degree to which we're talking about is very narrow, right? We're not talking about huge degrees of separation here. That's why it's so tragic that the social democratic forces, the Bernie Sanders movement, etc., has been completely taken out of the conversation. It's been suppressed to such a degree, and that has been a disservice, I think, to the development of that power that we need to break through that narrow political confines that we're in.
Right. Heath Dillon asks Danny about what Trump said in debate about North Korea and Obama. And then Kelly wants to know what kind of camera you have. It is a very good camera.
Oh man,
You can answer that one first if you want. It's probably easier and more straightforward.
It's a Sony I always forget. Yeah, it's a Sony camera. I'd have to look. It's funny, when I was on Jimmy Dore for a very short thing about the new No Cold War stuff, he asked the same thing, and I had to text
Really good.
his producer. So it's
I know what you're saying.
A6400, Sony A6400. So
Okay.
it's very,
You just connect it to your laptop?
yeah, you have to get like it's called like an AJA. It's like a thing that connects to the camera into the laptop. It's
Okay,
good.
cool.
It's good. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's good.
No. Looks like you can get it for under $1,000 though.
Yeah, no,
All right,
which isn't, I guess, isn't terrible. I'm clueless about this
Yeah.
stuff. In terms of DPRK and Obama, I mean, from what I remember about the debate, which I trauma blocked a little bit because the foreign policy stuff was just so nightmarish and hawkish on both sides.
Bad.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But Trump made the point, I think, that it's not a bad thing to have relationships with leaders, even that you don't like. And
yeah, remember when Obama said that? And like the right wing and Fox went crazy?
Yeah. So, it's lost on Trump, though, especially after the last 3.5, 4 years, where, he's been very bellicose and belligerent and aggressive in so many respects. So, but it's still a point that we need to heed. And I think if Biden does win, we need to continue to put forward and get over the fact that Trump says these things. I think that needs to be gone over. We know that Trump doesn't have the right motivations. We know he's not about peace. But if it's about political expediency, that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
That's all it's about. And we need to take it into a peace movement, all right? And we know that Trump has so many issues. The racist, imperialist policies of his administration have been horrific, and we need to oppose those too. So we can do both. But it's a very important point that he does make from time to time.
Yeah. Anything else? I mean, thank you for doing all you do.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on and for doing what you do. Your show brings on such a broad range of guests. I love,
Thank you.
I love the guests you're able to get on, and your work is very valuable. One of the few, there are not many progressives who are able to kind of build up these kind of networks that will talk about these issues. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. This is great. And your social media is in there. When is your next event?
So it's November 14th. It'll be at 9 a.m. Eastern time, so very early, especially if you're in the Pacific. But we're trying to make it international, so there's so many time zones to consider.
It's like reparations, international reparations. Yeah,
exactly. So you can go to nocoldwar.org and register for that. I do have a Patreon personally if people want to contribute to that, because I'm trying to. It's a pandemic depression out here, so definitely trying to build up some funds to be able to continue to do this work. So yeah, and follow me on Twitter, Spirit of Ho, as you probably shared already. But yeah, and follow me each week at Black Agenda Report, because I am writing weekly for them.
Awesome. How'd you get into that, by the way?
So
that publication,
yeah, well, it's quite simple. I mean, a lot of the work I do is pro bono, because a lot of it's just to the service of the movement. And so after college, I was like, oh man, I gotta do something. And I don't know, most people on the left have probably experienced this, right? You go around organizations and movements, and you find out that, because of work, you don't have as much time to do it, and timing's all off, or you just don't really like the local scene, right? So I was like, I need to do something. And I was writing in college for the school newspaper, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll continue to do this. and there were very few publications that would accept my criticism of Barack Obama. As you probably know, and as your viewers probably know, it was a very lonely period for the left
Yeah.
during the Obama administration, when there was such a fierce attack from all sections, right, from progressive to the right, to the liberals, about what Obama meant in the broader political lexicon here in this country. And so Black Agenda Report, I found them during the Libya debacle, the US NATO invasion of Libya, and I had been following them ever since, because they were one of the few who criticized and did it from a principled position about peace, and criticizing war, and talking about the condition of Black people in this country, talking about the economic situation of the broader working class. And so I just started submitting, and it took a
That's great.
few times to kind of learn how to write in any sort of effective way. It's so much different from academy to publication. So yeah, ever since then I've been contributing as much as I can weekly for the last 6, 7, 8, almost 8 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Where'd you go to college?
So I went to Skidmore College.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I
Kept it in
did.
New York State.
I
Nice.
did. It was a very, very interesting experience. I mean, it is what politicized me, so I
Oh, it
appreciate
is? Oh, interesting.
coming from a working class background, going to an elitist
Right.
institution like that, very isolated, full of rich people from Bronxville and
Right.
places like that. So you really get the up close and personal with your class enemy. Very, very. I think like 70% of students are like top 1%
Oh,
income
wow. I
bracket.
didn't
So
realize that.
it's
What is that
55,000 a
Wesleyan?
year. Yeah, it's probably. I mean, Wesleyan's probably similar.
Yeah.
Maybe it has a little bit of more of a open policy in terms of money to other,
Right.
like it's getting more is relatively generous, but I just don't think many people apply there. The location, I think, is
Yeah.
rough for people. So people of lesser means don't necessarily go there. It
Right.
was one of the few colleges that accepted me, so I was like, I
Oh.
guess I gotta go there.
And
Yeah.
your parents, what did you say about your parents at the beginning? That you're
Yeah, so my mom is Vietnamese, and I think she's an interesting person. So it's hard to know like generation wise, but she definitely migrated here, so she's first generation. And my father's family, grew up in rural New Hampshire, so mixed background for
and they
sure.
met.
They met in Boston, but
Okay.
my dad was drafted to the Vietnam War. He didn't meet her there. He met her several years after he came back, but he fought. He unfortunately had to fight in that war
Yeah.
after Tet. So that was not a great experience for him. So yeah.
And their politics? What were their politics like? Or are
My
their
dad
politics?
was like a New Deal, like I would say New Deal liberal more so. He voted for Sanders in 2016.
Oh, good.
He died in 2017.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But he voted for Sanders in 2016 in the primary. But he was a Democrat through and through. My mom, though, I mean, this is just true, I think, of much of a good section of the Vietnamese diaspora. I don't want to generalize, but there's a huge right-wing trend, right? Huge anti-communist
Right.
history there, given just how the U.S. kind of curried favor with certain sections of the country during its long war there, and a lot of the migrants came from very privileged backgrounds, and so they're very right-wing. So she's been a Republican like all.
Oh, really?
Life. Yeah. So very mixed background, but yeah, their politics affected me somewhat. I mean, exposed to right-wing ideas and exposed to liberal ideas. I guess it's kind of a mix, but I was mostly apolitical. I didn't care about any of that stuff until I got into college and had my little urban bubble kind of burst.
Right. Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime,
Yeah.
anytime.
When
I'm
are you
around.
going?
It's a pandemic, so
Yeah, I know. Any more travel plans anytime soon?
Well, the goal, I mean, part of this campaign, I guess, that I've spoken with some members, is to try win the pandemic lessons to step up our work in terms of like maybe trying to organize delegations to China. I know for me personally, a huge goal of mine is to try to get to China again, get to Vietnam, spend a lot of time, in those two countries, especially after the pandemic response. Like there's just so much to
Yeah,
learn,
I need to
right?
have someone to talk about what Vietnam did. Like what I need to have a guest on talk about what Cuba did, what Vietnam
There's
did,
a
what
great
Kerala did.
Well, there's a great YouTuber you could reach out to, Luna Oi, who lives in Vietnam. And so I'm sure she would be, I don't know what the
Right.
time difference, but I'm sure she would be happy to come
Yeah,
on.
I can do a pre-tape. Yeah,
Yeah, that too. And just it's incredible. Vietnam was able to close the border very early because China borders Vietnam, and then put in all of these measures where it didn't have to go into lockdown like in Wuhan had to, because of the healthcare system being overstretched and how rapidly it was spreading. But to be able to see what was going on, with its neighbor, and then to put in all of these policies from um, ensuring that people had the testing, the tracing that they needed. And testing, I think, was a minor part. It was a lot of tracing, a lot of making sure people had what they needed, doctors in the community, educating families. Vietnam's still a very rural country. So getting out there and educating and ensuring that people know what's going on, and keeping people, healthy and well, like just making sure that as they have to take these restrictions and precautions, that they have what they need. And I think that's just such a big part of this. It seems so simple too, right? It seems so simple, but it really
yeah,
does take a strong central government that works in your interests.
yeah,
And I think, that's what we do not have. We don't not only have a public health system here in this country, but we don't have a government that's willing to say, okay, well, if you need a check every month, or if you need your loans to be forgiven, if you need these things, then it's just going to happen. It's going to happen.
yeah,
Not only is it going to, but it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen the day that it's
yeah,
needed. And we're not going to wait and see how bad this virus is before we say you need to stay 6 feet away from people and don't send your kids to school, like happened in New York City. Happened in New York City. It's going to happen right away and rapidly, and people are going to follow through because they trust the government, because the government is not some force that's outside of them. It's it's a partner in the well-being of the broader society.
yeah. Someone keeps asking, I don't know, I mean, I could ask Margaret Kimberly or the editors. They're like, is he black? If not, why is he writing for Black Agenda Report? Which
Yes,
I
this has
kind of
been
feel like I should just have that person speak to your manager, your
that's what
black
I've said to so
managers.
many people. It's not the first time I've gotten
Yeah,
that question. I usually say that if there's an issue with that, because there have been people in the Black political movement who've had issues with that. They've said, well, this is a Black institution.
right,
Of course, they're not contributing to that institution,
right,
but they say it's a Black institution. Why are you so? And I get it. I respect it. I think, if a Black owned grassroots political organization or institution wants to have an institution just for itself, that's
right.
self-determination, and that
Yeah,
needs to be respected. But at the same time, self-determination goes all ways. So it can't,
yeah,
so it's about, if the leadership
right.
remains, in firm hands of a Black left political orientation and movement, then it's up to them to decide.
Yeah.
So for me, like,
It's not like
I
you
write
sued your way to get a position there. You didn't like
no,
take it
no,
to
no.
the
I
Supreme
just
Court and
it's just
yeah,
yeah. So, and then I just started putting in. I mean, I put in work for them. I really,
yeah,
I don't ask for money. I know there are certain ways you have to behave, and I think for me, it's always been about solidarity, and I do what I do for Black Agenda Report because I really want my labor and my efforts to go towards strengthening what Black Agenda Report represents. So it's in no way about like fame
right,
or a job or anything like that. It's about building up the politics of Black Agenda Report. I believe need to be the politics of our broader movement.
yeah,
So anything I can do for that. And the minute that I'm told, you're not needed anymore, is the minute
right,
I say, okay, it'll be,
yeah,
of course I'll be sad because I love them. But,
right,
at the end of the day, that's their prerogative and that's their
right,
jurisdiction. So that's usually how I
yeah,
approach it.
and yeah. All right, cool. Well, any final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I guess to those who are still watching, this is a very rough moment, I think, in in the history of the United States. Uh, we are living in an empire in decline. The economic system, capitalism, is in decline. It's in crisis. We're going through a Great Depression. We're going through a pandemic. We're going through climate catastrophe. It seems like everything is going in the wrong direction. But for those who are still watching, we make up the right direction, or the left, we should say the left
Right.
direction, but
Yeah,
we make
exactly.
up the right direction. We need to continue to do the work that we're doing, and to build up our forces, support each other. I think I've heard you say it sometimes, that there's like almost like this competition that happens. I think the business part of this, we're all trying to live, all of that. It can kind of get in the way of coming together. But I think just generally, we have to be able to negotiate those issues, and be able to talk openly about them, and really push forward what we really want. And I think most people watch your show want a progressive agenda, want a radical agenda that isn't really so radical anymore. And to continue to do what you're doing. And so that's I guess that's my final message to the masses.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Danny Haiphong.
Hey, thank you.
And everyone else, I'll see you Wednesday. I'm not sure if it's going to be live or I'll be pre-recorded, but there will be a Noam Chomsky appearance. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Yep. And make sure you check out the latest Useful Idiots, because I think I do a really, really, really good defense of Jeffrey Toobin. Really good, really nuanced. I think I'm doing for Jeffrey Toobinism what I've done for necrophilia, if you know what I mean. By which I mean have no self-interest in it, not interested in either of those activities. But I think there's a really important moral discussion to be had. That's all I'm going to say. All right. And make sure you, Kelly or Brad, someone tell me I don't know why people aren't getting their notifications. It's probably because we speak truth to power. From everything from China to Tubin to Suleimani to sharks, Necrotubin. Oh my God, it's terrible. But yeah, I don't know why people aren't getting their notifications. We got to figure that out. Kelly's trying to figure that out. Make sure you subscribe, you like, you share. I guess it's good to watch the ads for whatever reason. So just sit down, play the ads all the way through, do something else while you're doing that. And don't buy the product. Save that money to donate to this show and to the Patreon, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, it's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And I will see you guys next Wednesday. I'll see you in Wednesday. It's not even a week away. Other people are, I should invite Ajamu Baraka. Is it Ajamu or Jamu? I'm not sure. Sorry about that. Maybe set up text alerts. Yeah. No, I don't tube and shame. That's the whole point. And if you miss these guys, if you miss the live streams, you just watch them afterwards. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys Wednesday. Thank you again so much, Danny.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.